Passes 5-0.
Thanks, Rosie. Okay, we're going to start off with the administration of oath of office by the superintendent, and I am up first.
So, the loyalty oath is more, come please, please. The loyalty oath is more ceremonial at this point. As I understand it, in the election process, candidates are asked to do this, and indeed, President Alexander has done this one time before. But today it is my honor as superintendent of Cabrillo Unified School District to provide the loyalty oath and let Ms. Alexander do this. So, President Alexander, will you repeat after me? I, Mary Beth Alexander, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Well, thank you very much, and congratulations to President Alexander on her re-election and continuing term on the board for Cabrillo Unified School District. As everyone knows, there was an election this year, and we had last time we celebrated Freya McCammets, 12 years on the board, and we have a new board member, and I'm going to call her up now as we wait for Lizette Cortez to arrive. So Carmen Daniel, would you approach the lectern or whatever I call this? And I will remind Carmen, if you want to, Ms. Daniel, if you want to look at the screen, I think Rosie can pull up the oath in case. Oh, you have a cheat sheet too. Good. All right. All right. So, repeat after. Thank you. Welcome. Congratulations. And per the state of California and the county of San Mateo, we do the ceremonial loyalty oath. And if you'll repeat after me, I, Carmen Daniel, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations to you, and welcome to our newest board member, Carmen Daniel. Thank you very much. Congratulations to you. I know that Member Cortez is running late, and maybe President Alexander, if we might, we could move on to another item and try to fulfill this part of the duty later, or we could take a break as you see fit. Oh, the timing is perfect. Perfect.
That's on cue. Cue the side door.
That's fantastic. Okay, and our third oil loyalty oath today, and this is not the first time that Ms. Cortez has done this either. I'll tell you what, I'll read over your shoulder, and you can have this in case. You'll want, there it is. Okay. This is the ceremonial loyalty oath under the state of California and the county of San Mateo. Repeat after me, please. I, Lizette Cortez, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Thank you and congratulations, Ms. Cortez. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to move on to our annual governing board organization. And so we need to elect governing board officers to serve from December 2022 through December 2023. We're going to be electing president, vice president, clerk, and secretary of the board, and also authorization of the president, vice president, clerk of the governing board, and/or secretary as signatories for the governing board.
And for members of the public, everybody okay out there? For members of the public, I just want to note that we included bylaw 9100 organization should people have questions about this. And just there is also description of president, vice president, clerk of the governing board, secretary of the board, and the authorization. I just do want to note here that just to explain for people who may have not followed this 2 years ago or last year, sorry, we do this every year, that typically we have a rotation in this district, and that the new member comes in if they have not served in an office as the clerk, and that the vice president typically will succeed and rotate to the president. In this case, Freya McCammett, who served as vice president during 2022, is no longer with us. I mean, on this dais, she's with us. Hi, Freya. God bless you. That is sort of like the explanation, and I will leave it up to President Alexander to sort of ask for motions and votes and such.
Okay, I'll start us off. I'll make a motion to appoint Sophia Lane president of the board.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you, Kimberly. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, this item passes 5-0. And Sophia Lane is our new board president. Thank you.
Okay, now the vice president, can I get a motion and a second for?
My microphone on. There, I'll make a motion for Kimberly Hines as our vice president.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Mary Beth. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. This item passes. Oh, I forgot to ask Catalina. I'm sorry, Catalina. Catalina, did you say aye? Okay. So we have 5+1, our new vice president, Kimberly Hines. Thank you.
I nominate Carmen Daniel as clerk of the governing board.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Sophia. All those in favor, please say aye. All
Aye.
those opposed, please say no. Thank you. This item passes 5+1, and Carmen Daniel is our new clerk.
Okay, secretary to the board.
I nominate Sean McFetridge for secretary to the board. And just to be clear, that is the typical thing in our bylaws.
And that is standard in the state of California, that the superintendent serves as the board secretary, yes.
I second.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Kimberly. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Item passes 5+1.
Okay, the last item we have here is authorization of the president, vice president, clerk to the governing board, and/or secretary as signatories for the governing board. Could I get a motion and a second if you want to do it?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Sophia. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. Thank you. Item passes 5+1.
Oh, okay.
And Rosie and Sean, correct me if I'm out of line, but I wanted just a point of order question. A little gift for Mary Beth.
Oh.
She doesn't know this is coming, but just as a quick thank you for all that you've done for us, is leading us through what is, they're never easy years, but I think certainly the last few have been particularly challenging. And just wanted to thank you on behalf of the whole board for all that you've done to lead us through these times, and just setting a good example of collaborative leadership, balancing getting the job done for the board, as well as making sure we have public input. And we're all just really grateful. I wanted to thank you for that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very unexpected. Thank you all. Wow. Okay, thank you. I will look at that. We're going to take a short break now just to switch seats and switch things up, because Sophia will be leading the meeting from here on. I'm out, so. Well, let's take, what time is it? Let's take 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
6:14,
6:14.
6:20, if anyone needs to go to the bathroom. 6:20, we'll come back.
I need a second.
Oh,
Kim.
Thank you, Kimberly. Those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Thank you.
right, everybody, welcome back from our short, brief, but important intermission to get our seats and our signs aligned. Hopefully we have all the right ones. All right, so we are now to item 4B, approval of the schedule of regular governing board meetings for the year 2023. Dr. McFetrich?
Yeah, just to explain this, typically we do meet on the second Thursday of every month, and you will see that Rosie, as she has all the many years now that I've known her, has set up the calendar for us, and you will see that there are, I believe, 2 dates with asterisks this year, whereby the second Thursday would be not conducive. That's Thursday, January 19, and if I'm not mistaken, Thursday, June 22nd doesn't fall on the 2nd. The 8th does, but the 22nd does not. And then you'll see that the 14th, December 14th, actually is the second Thursday. It's not typical, and I just want to point out today is not a Thursday. It is not the second Thursday. And the reason why we have sometimes these weird dates in December is because the first interim budget must be submitted before December 15th, and we must also have a certain window by which we welcome newly elected members or do the organization meeting. So this is our recommendation for the board calendar for next year, and I think what's of note is that only 2 of the dates are not the second Thursday, and staff would recommend approval.
Okay, this is an item for approval, so do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you,
right.
Kimberly. Thank you, Mary Beth.
All right, we'll go to en masse votes. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All not in favor, please say nay. Oh, sorry, Rosie, I'll defer that to you next time. Old habits die hard.
No problem. So the item passes 5+1.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, that brings us to item 4C, designation of governing board representatives to district-created committees and other committees and commissions for the year 2023. Dr. McFetrich.
Yes, we typically do authorize and designate governing board members to district-created committees. We try to keep these committees to a set amount, and for management purposes, for our work, for focus, we've dropped these down and recommend 10 this year. And so it's just a matter of the board deciding who wants to serve on these committees. In past, we've had committees, for example, with the real estate committee, and then once we picked real estate advisors, that committee ended. You'll see tonight, that 2 committees have come off that were offered last year to get us to the 10, and they are the LGBTQ Roundtable and the Visual and Performing Arts Committee, because the Visual and Performing Arts Master Plan was created and approved by the board, and the LGBTQ Committee met for several years and is no longer meeting.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
You will actually have to also talk about who wants to be, I think you should go through the committees and talk about who wants to be on those committees.
Need the motion to approve first, because we approved at the end, and then discuss, right, like typical?
You could move to approve now and then deliberate and just do discussion. That's fine. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine.
Okay.
And then, and I guess,
I forgot to call for discussion earlier, sorry about that.
no problem.
Okay. Okay, great. So motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Second. Okay, now we can discuss. And-
Thank you, Mary Beth, and thank you, Lisette, for your motions.
And may I propose, Dr. McFetrich, that you kind of walk us through each, would you like to walk us through each one by one to facilitate?
Sure, I will. The San Mateo County Committee on School District Organization is actually, I clarified this with the County Office of Education, it actually only meets 1 date required for a board member, but the County Office of Education asks us to do that. And we typically have 1 board member and 1 backup, and last year it was Freya McCammett as our appointed board member. She'd done this for some years, and Sophia Lane was the backup. So we would look for 1 person and a backup in case they have more than the November meeting. Typically, the Committee on School District Organization for the county office is looking at boundaries of other districts, because we had already changed to a trustee area here. that is not such a concern for us, but this does look at district boundaries for the county.
All right, do we have any volunteers? It's pretty low commitment. It's just like one meeting a year. Or would folks, I don't know, maybe for Carmen in particular, maybe it's helpful to go through the whole list of the brief description like you just did, Dr. Mefetris,
Yeah.
and then we can go
The
back.
Career Technical Education Advisory Committee also is a required meeting, part of our CTIG, California Career Technical Education Incentive Grant funding. It is required that we have a CTE advisory committee, and I believe this was served, I think Ms. Cortez and Ms. McCannett served on this committee in the past, so Freya, that would leave a vacancy if Ms. Cortez was interested in continuing. The City District 2+2 Committee is a committee that we formed in my first year of superintendency 3 years ago, and that sort of fell by the wayside during COVID, but city manager has asked if we could get that back going, and I was delighted to hear that. And so this would be a committee that would come together maybe twice a year, maybe quarterly, I would think at a max, where 2 members of the board and 2 members of city council would meet with the city of Half Moon Bay staff and with CUSD staff. The CSBN legislative action representatives, that serves in different reasons, but that CSBA, there is a regular standing meeting, I believe, through at the County School Board Association. You'll see that at the end. And the CSBN legislative action representatives, I believe Kim and Freya, you served on this in the past, and you know, you've seen probably in Coastside Buzz, Michelle Dragony had reported on comments that you'd made previously, Kim, about you meeting with Senator Becker staff to talk about funding and such. So CSBA and legislative action representatives would serve as board representatives to serve as, you know, ambassadors, if you will, or go-betweens for advocacy for school district, usually school funding. District English Language Learner Advisory Committee, the DLAC Committee, also a committee that we need board members on to talk about the progress of English learners and to advise on that. The Environmental Sustainability Committee, this was Freya McCammett and Lizette Cortez in this past year. It is based of students in the Environmental Committee at Half Moon Bay High School and with teachers and other staff in the committee looking at initiatives for environmental sustainability in the district. Budget Advisory Committee, we always ask that we continue that because in case there is a need for budget concerns, which I think you'll probably see more in tonight's meeting, or budget cuts, I should say, and looking at how we're funded. Latino Roundtable is a committee that we've decided to maintain because we think of the importance of this, particularly as the equity audit is underway. We do find that these are areas of performance that we want to address, particularly for Latino families, Spanish-speaking families, English language learner families. Parent-teacher organization, the PTO Alliance, they meet every other month, and those are PTO presidents from every PTO in the district. And we ask 2 board members to meet, and that's typically one morning every 2 months for about an hour. And the San Mateo School Board Association, County School Board Association is a regular meeting of the San Mateo County School Board of school board members.
And do you think we need 2 people on each of these committees, or are you looking for 1, or what do you?
I would recommend 2 on each. I would say that the first one, because it is so pro forma, typically we would have 1 board member and a backup in case they only need 1 member. The Career Technical Education Advisory Committee, we would recommend 2. We would never recommend more than 2 because of the Brown Act. You don't want to have more than 2. You get to a quorum, and there's bylaws for us in the Brown Act that make that difficult. So, yeah, the nature of the 2x2 committee is 2 people. I would recommend 2 for every committee.
And the 2x2, isn't that usually the president and the vice president?
Typically, it is the president and the vice president. There's nothing written into bylaws. There is no statutory description of that, but that is typically the president and vice president. Yes, it is.
And just for full disclosure, I'm a delegate for the CSBA, so I'm active on that as well. That could contribute to this. And I'm vice president of the San Mateo County School Board Association. So just wanted to throw that out there as I'm doing stuff for those already.
You're on.
And I'm hoping, we can have some, more support, but those will probably be two natural fits.
And I wouldn't mind continuing on with the, obviously, Sophia has the CSBA connection, but having worked with the various legislative offices, I'd like to continue with that role in advocacy for our funding.
So you'll see that Rosie is just filling these names in, and if you all can deliberate and talk and sort of add your names, once we get to 2 on each line, then we'll ask you to vote.
Also happy to continue, or happy to support with the District 2+2 committee with the city, and also through my work with the Coastside Workforce Development Roundtable, happy to transition onto the CTE as well, as there's a big synergy between those two groups. And I'm not trying to just plug in and jump it. If I'd certainly defer to Carmen in particular is interested in any of these for sure, but I just wanted to just throw out there, I think where there's pre-existing work and a synergy, I think that's a good thing to leverage.
I would imagine, Ms. Hines, you're going to be on the 2+2 committee also, for sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
I've been part of the budget committee, and I wouldn't mind continuing with that. And I don't know if you want to join me, Carmen, but it might be kind of interesting being new. Or do you have ideas?
Sure, I'll join you on the budget committee.
I'd like to continue with the Environmental Sustainability Committee, as well as the Roundtable and the District English Language Advocacy Committee. And if nobody wants to, I'd also would like to be part of the Latino Roundtable as well.
I'd love to continue with that on Lizette and the Latino Roundtable.
Sorry, Lizette, I got lost. You say the District English Learner Advisory Committee, Environmental Sustainability Committee, the Latino Roundtable, and which other? That's it? Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to confirm, I'm happy to continue working with you, Lizette, on the Latino Roundtable as well. I think we have a good set of kind of network and relationships building.
I've been doing the PTO Alliance, and I'm happy to continue that.
I can help, but I'm also happy to defer to others who might want to get to know community leaders with our parents. But I don't want to push anyone to take more than they're comfortable with. So I'm fine. It's a pretty low commitment and familiar and favored group that I enjoy working with. So I'm fine to help, but I don't need to do that.
Do you mean the PTO?
Yeah.
Okay. The San Mateo County Committee on School District Organization, is that somebody wants to do? I can do it if you want me to. Yeah.
And Carmen, I know we're all kind of jumping in because we've already been on committees, but I want to make sure as the new person, if you have anything, speak your piece, right? If not, it's fine too. But I feel like we're all kind of got our groove going, I don't mind joining Sophia on the CTE Advisory Committee. That was a pretty good start, actually.
I'd like to join the PTO. Does that still need a person? Yeah, put me down for the PTO.
And I will tell you that is typically, Brianna's here. It's on Wednesdays. Isn't Wednesdays every other month in the morning.
Oh, crud.
And so there's a work
Oh, that might be a problem.
conflict.
Never mind.
Oh, no, that's, and so, okay. I'm bringing it up. Environmental Sustainability Committee happens in the afternoon. The District English Learner Advisory Committee also happens in afternoon and evening, I believe.
I was going to suggest also the DLAC, because that's also parents, and that might be a good way to meet parents in the community. I don't know if you speak Spanish, because that definitely helps, but there's usually somebody there that can help in the interpretation to the English.
And she's,
I'll just throw it out there, just because those meetings are usually in the evening, right, Lizette?
we're not signing you up for Ms.
Yeah.
Daniel unless you say
No, yeah,
yay.
just
Yeah, sure, if that's okay.
Okay, the DLAC.
All right, the DLAC. Okay, scratch me for the PTO then.
the evening one.
I can do the San Mateo County School Board Association as a second, unless someone else wants to do it. I'm happy to defer.
Sorry, PTO Alliance, unless anybody else is interested.
So I think that really only leaves a backup for Kim on the San Mateo County Committee in case you need a backup, but we could just leave one there. And then the Environmental Sustainability Committee, which typically I think is 4 more meetings in 2023. And that would just need a second member. If someone was interested, we could always try to bring you in later, but that isn't an afternoon meeting also. That's after the school day.
I'll do it.
Okay. Then I would suggest you have filled in the spots in a pretty quick manner, and I would think if you want to vote, it seems like you have consensus.
What's the timing of the San Mateo County Committee on School District Organization? Is it a day thing?
It's a nighttime meeting in November, happens once a year, and then they actually have representatives, but they need regular representatives from every district, as I understand it, from Nyambe Clay of San Mateo County Office of Education, and they only need 1 member, but you could serve as a backup for Kim for the one time they have to meet.
And then you basically elect representatives from our county district, which corresponds to the supervisors' districts. So like right now, I think our elected members are from Jefferson High School Union. So it's really like easy.
Well, if Kim can't make it, then you let us know and someone will step up.
Do you want to list yourself as a backup, Mary Beth?
Apparently I am. Wasn't really, apparently I just did.
Kim, don't miss that meeting or Mary Beth will be
That
talking
wasn't
to
my,
you.
I don't care, it's fine.
Okay, looks like we're all set. That's true. So Rosie, do we need to take a roll call vote on this, or is this en masse? Okay.
So this is a mass vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. This item passes 5+1.
Great, thank you, everybody. All right, moving on to item 4D, review of annual remuneration, reimbursement, and other benefits of board members. Dr. McFetrich.
Yes, this was a policy that we amended a few years back to make sure that board members understood they had the ability to be remunerated, reimbursed for board meetings. And Ed Code requires that it be adjusted by 5% if the board so moves. And so we have basically put out a memo that if the board moves to accept the increase, which is what Ed Code allows, I think it's 5%, then I think we go to $264.50. Did I get this right? I don't have the memo on me offhand, but it is a 5% increase, and it would mean that if board members so choose, they could be reimbursed for on a monthly basis for the amount of meetings that they go to. Yeah, we go from $252 to $264
Per month, to clarify.
per month. And board members have not always taken this. They would just work with me and Rosie, and we would get them that reimbursement. You will see lately in the press that there has been talk, and I'll just bring this up, of the fact that people who do run for office, it is a great commitment of time and energy, as you've seen by the committees, by these meetings. And, you know, you'll see city council members, I believe, get paid 4 times this amount monthly. So, yeah. So I would recommend that you take the 5% adjustment as per ad code.
All right, do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Second? All right, questions and comments?
I just did have a comment that I do think this is important, even though, you know, I might not be taking it, but I think it is important for people that, you know, if we're trying to reach out to people that are from marginalized communities and we want them to be a part of this, that I think it is important to them. And Lizette has spoken to this in the past, and I do think it's important to include that, and that can make a difference between someone maybe doing it and not. And we are much lower than other districts and city and things like that. So I'm happy, you know, that we're going to take this small step. I mean, it's $12 a month, but I do want to, you know, just say that I think it's important, and maybe somewhere down the line we look at it again, because I don't want anyone to not do this because they are having to pass up work or they can't afford it to be gone. So
I agree, it's a big commitment and it's a civic duty, and in general, I think a lot of people understand that. I think Clay Lambert in the Half Moon Bay Review wrote of this recently, which is there's not a lot of reward and benefit sometimes to being a public official. So I want to thank this board for doing what they do, and at such a small financial reimbursement, but thank you for what you do.
Yeah, I just couldn't agree more with what you both have said. And again, for perspective, other boards and councils do earn considerably more. There are colleagues over the hill at other districts in San Mateo County that earn $600 a month, and that's, you know, clearly more than twice the amount we have here, and that's disproportionate to the funding differences even. But I am glad that we can at least offer something to take a little bit of the edge off, and hopefully that can be somewhat helpful to diversifying our board and having it represent our students more so over time.
And if it is the direction of the board for me to look at whether or not we could increase this amount past the education code, I'm happy to look at that with San Mateo County Council to see if that's a possibility. And I'm hearing 2 members of the board say, Sean, investigate that. Is it a direction of the board? Is there another board member who wants me to look into that?
I think it's good to look at the opportunities, for sure.
I can do it. I'll take it upon myself to do it.
yeah, and not necessarily for this year, I don't think, but
Very good.
you know, for the future at some point, at least to know the rules around it and how to do it. So
Very good.
I think the city did something like they hadn't, I could be wrong on this, but I thought I read the article and it said like they hadn't increased it in a few years, so then when they did it, they took all the percentages from the years prior and made a bigger raise all at once. So I don't know, I'm sure there's all kinds of rules around it, but.
All right, there are no further questions or comments. We'll go to vote. Rosie?
Thank you. For this item, Kimberly did the motion and Lisette the second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Thank you. The item passes 5+1.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item 5, communications. We'll start with 5A, public comments. So just a reminder, because we have a few, this item is an opportunity to provide a comment to the board. We allow up to 3 minutes typically, with 20 minutes in total. All this is specified in the lovely packet and agenda that Rosie puts together for us each month, but I wanted to just verbally go through that. We do have the option to extend per the president's discretion and the board consent beyond that 20 minutes. And I do ask that per those guidelines that Rosie has set out there for us from our agreements, that if members of the public share the same viewpoint, please do select a few individuals to address the board on behalf of that viewpoint so that we can conduct our business in an effective and efficient manner. which is good for everybody, especially the public. Typically, we cannot respond to comments other than referring matters to staff for follow-up, though please do also feel free, if we do not explicitly do so, during the course of this meeting, refer you to Dr. McFetridge and his staff. Do follow up with Dr. McFetridge and his staff after the meeting if you would like further information. So without further ado, we will proceed to the public comments we have received. I have a few that were submitted in writing, so I'll read through those, and then we have one in person. So we'll start with Aiden Pulido, a parent, and the following is his comment submitted in advance in writing. To the board and fellow parents within the district, El Granada Elementary is in its 4th month without a speech therapist, which, as I understand, the district is legally obligated to provide. I've heard there are over 35 children with IEPs, written contract of services to be rendered, not receiving speech services at El Granada Elementary. My daughter is one of those children. My wife and I saw how harmful it was for our kindergarten to be nonverbal at school, so we decided not to wait and pay out of pocket for speech therapy. We pay $600 every month, we miss work, and she misses school. We recently received an email from Principal Mrs. O'Connor Brown that virtual speech services will eventually be available. Is this the best we can do? Our current speech therapists, other providers, and we as her parents find virtual speech therapy an unacceptable solution for our child. Director Educational Support Services, Martha Ladd, has yet to respond to any of our emails. The last communication we received from her was an email on 10/18 when she wrote, "Hope to begin services next week." It is now December 12th. Tomorrow night is a meeting to discuss plans for a brand new multi-million-dollar school construction at El Granada Elementary. Meanwhile, the kids there don't even have a speech therapist. CUSD has now substantially delayed the implementation of our child's IEP, which we believe is denying our child of a free and appropriate public education. Okay. Next, we have Julie Ron, El Granada Elementary parent and Cunha teacher. Oh, I'm sorry, this item pertains to a future item in the agenda, so I'll hold off on this one. We'll come back to it then. Oh, and the next one does too. Okay, so the other two I'll bring up later was item 7B, and so we'll bring up Brianna LaFontaine.
Good evening. Happy birthday, Mary Beth. Welcome, Carmen. I'm going off the cuff because it's been a month and it's just, yeah, it's going this year. I just wanted to bring to all of your attention the bond dollars. I've been trying to figure out how much money do we have left in uncommitted bond dollars. As you know, the Phase 2 of El Granada Elementary has not been approved yet, and there isn't yet a budget for Phase 2. I will say we are having a design and construction meeting on Thursday, and I am so grateful for that. Doug and I met with Sean and our design team on Monday. The communication's there, we just don't know how much money. So as you approve and review dollars that are going against our bond, please try and find out how much bond dollars are left that are uncommitted so that you know if there's a number in your head. I have heard it will cost us 10, 12, 15, and 20 million to finish Phase 2. So whatever number you believe is good, can you make sure there are enough uncommitted dollars and then work backwards from there with anything else that comes across your desk. Also, we do have a meeting on Thursday at 5:30, so if 2 of you would like to join and see how that goes and hear from our community, we would love to have you. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brianna. Okay, that brings us to 5B, Employee Organizations Reports. First, CUTA.
The face. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Ms. Daniel. We look forward to working with you. I'm Claudia Lundstruth, co-president of CUSD. Let me know if I'm too close or too loud. CUSD, along with everyone else, has had a full and often stressful year. We look forward to a new year working together towards our common goals. And I've written lots of notes on my notes. I do want to encourage again that board meetings are hybrid. As you can see, there's not much of a turnout here. There's just a few people who aren't required to be here. My memory says that when meetings were online, there was much higher participation, so it seems to me very much an equity issue that meetings could be hybrid. So one of our shared goals, I think, between CUTA and CUSD is equity, which is a complicated issue because obviously we have to make decisions about what will help with equity. CUTA knows that teachers and counselors are essential to achieving equity in our schools, yet year after year it seems that CUSD does not agree. Every year we lose quality teachers and counselors to schools that pay better. No one goes into education expecting to make it rich, but we do expect a living wage. As Ms. Lane was commenting on the disproportionate pay for board members compared to over the Hill, I think many of her comments very much apply to teachers in the Cabrillo district compared to over the Hill. Here at CUSD, we have millions of dollars in reserve for a potential economic downturn. The problem is that if we don't do right by our students now, why bother saving for the future? We know that many, many students are in crisis mode for a variety of reasons. There's so much more that could be done for students, so much more that teachers could do for students if teachers didn't feel so overwhelmed. Sorry, like I said, I put a lot of notes here. I'm trying to get them in order. The state of California has distributed more money than ever before to our schools. CUSD has the funds meant for equitable teacher salaries, but those funds are sitting unused in savings accounts. I was looking, in the past 5 years, CUTA and CUSD have been in negotiations almost nonstop, almost every year. We have gone to arbitration twice. CUTA members are confused about why we have to fight so hard to get the funds meant to support a vigorous, safe, and inviting classroom experience. Teachers who have to hold 2 or 3 jobs, who are worried about paying for maybe that brake job on their car, who give so much to help with the social, emotional needs of our students, have a right to our share of the funds that the state has allocated to us. I was looking at the handout on the budget. I had a few responses to that. It says, I didn't bring it up here with me. It says that the raises we've gotten in the past have amounted to 11%, yet we are still very much paid disproportionate to the rest of the county. It says that our funds were depleted because of the raises that we've received. Yet, as we know, we've gone to arbitration, and the arbitrator in no way indicated that giving us a raise would cause any problems at all, much less deplete any savings accounts. Now, I'm not sure what you meant by the word depleted, but to me, that's a strong word. And looking at the numbers, it doesn't look like there are any depleted accounts. Our students need us now more than ever. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, CSEA representative, if we have one here tonight. Appears we do not. Okay, so we'll move on to 5C, board members' report. And I'm going to try to rotate and maybe start with Mary Beth, if that's okay.
Sure, I'll start. I'm quick tonight. I just wanted to say that I just really wanted to thank everybody that's been working here and in education. As some of you know, I kind of had a personal tragedy recently, and it kind of makes you think about, you know, the problems in the world and what's going on and all different problems. And when I think about them, I just keep coming back to, you know, how do we fix such big problems, you know, no matter what it is. There's all kinds of stuff I could give it as examples. But I keep coming back to the way to fix it is to help kids before they get to the point of they're having a problem for whatever reason. So I just makes me think that what I'm doing here on the board and what all of you, you know, the teachers and everyone who's working with these kids every day, it's so important to our society to really help, you know, with these problems, because it's hard. They're so big. How do you fix them now? But a way you can fix them is by helping kids to not fall through the cracks, you know, pick them up before they fall and help them get a good start at life, no matter it's mental health or getting a good career or education, higher education, whatever it is for that kid. But the work that's being done here is just so important. So I just want to reiterate, like, really how thankful I am to the teachers and the staff and everyone, all the support staff that make the school go around, because it's such important work. And everyone I look out here too, I know everyone is working for the same thing, and that, you know, really what we're thinking about is kids first here. And everything we do, although we don't like to talk about budgets and numbers, please stay for that too, because that's interesting. You know, the bottom line is what every decision we make, and I know I've said this many times, is what we're doing best for the kids. And I really think that's how we can make a change in our society. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. I'm going to keep it simple and just go in this direction. So Kim.
Thank you. I concur with Mary Beth. What we're doing here is about the kids. And spoiler alert for later in the agenda, what really drew my attention is that we are flipping back to LCFF funding. The short version is LCFF, if I say that right, funding across the state of California is more or less flat funding. But we live in a high cost of living area, which in turn makes it sincerely inequitable compared to districts, say, in Fresno or LA or Visalia. Because it costs teachers more to live here, and we sincerely want to pay our teachers, we are then able to provide less programming than districts in other parts of the state. So please know that I continue to be in touch with Senator Becker's office and continue to try to frame understanding. If you want to understand yourself what the cost of living index does, an easy visual is salary.com, and look at cost of living in California, and you can see a bar chart. Roughly, if you were to compare the LA County area schools, I'll be back here, to the Bay Area is easily 25% more expensive for cost of living to live in. So, thank you. So I do encourage you to understand that when we are funded via LCFF, and if we try to compare across the peninsula, across the Bay Area, it's apples and oranges and bananas, because every single district is funded slightly different. We have a different parcel tax than District X over the hill. We have different base funding even when we flip between LCFF and basic aid. Palo Alto can spend $25,000 per pupil every year, and we're just over $14,000 per pupil. What we bring in varies, and what we're able to spend varies. So thank you for your patience and understanding, and please know that we sincerely are advocating for better funding so we can pay teachers more and we can make a difference in students' lives.
Great. I will go last. So we'll go to Carmen next, if that's okay, Carmen.
I just wanted to thank the board and everybody for the warm welcome. Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to meeting everybody and getting to know everybody in the schools and the stakeholders and especially the students. I'm an educator and I'm really, I have a lot of experience teaching. This is my first time being on the board and seeing the other side of things. So thank you very much, and please be patient with me as I am learning a lot right now.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Lizette.
Como siempre, buenas noches. Quiero empezar en español y luego sigo en inglés. Gracias, Josefina, por siempre estar aquí y estar dispuesta si hay alguien que necesita traducción. Quiero continuar para volver como siempre, a pedirle a los padres que participen, que se animen. Hay mucho apoyo. Antes no había tanto y para eso estamos aquí, para apoyarnos. Ojalá que haya más representación de los padres latinos, ya que no hay bastante y por muchas razones. Y rápidamente, más que nada, también le quiero dar la bienvenida a nuestra nueva miembro de la mesa directiva, que es una maestra, y nada más decirles a todos que no hay que perder la esperanza, no hay que perder la fe, y más que nada no hay que perder la positividad. Todo hay que verlo en una forma positiva, porque al final del día nosotros nos tenemos que ayudar unos a los otros para ser mejores personas, mejores en la comunidad y para apoyarnos unos a otros, porque todos nos necesitamos de unos a otros al final del día. I just wanted to welcome our new board member who has a teacher background, and I just wanted to just continue to encourage the Latino community to be more, to come and be more present and more involved. And there is definitely so much more support. And thank you for Josefina for always being here and being more than willing to provide translation if needed. Thank you, and thank you for the district for supporting that. And more than anything, I just wanted to say thank you. I kind of was like, there was no battling it out with anyone else for my spot at the board. But honestly, thank you for all the support that I've gotten. It's basically, I've been very blessed to serve in this board. It's nothing of what I would ever have imagined to be participating in, but I'm very proud and blessed to be serving with all the amazing people in the district. And thank you to all the teachers and everybody. And I just wanted to wish everybody just to continue to have faith and positivity and support each other, because we are a community and we do need each other at the end of the day. And hopefully any situation, any conflict that we see happen, we take it as an opportunity to learn and grow and support each other, because we more than ever, we need each other to help our youth and our future. So thank you.
Thank you, Lizette. So for my comments, I do want to start with a very big warm welcome to Carmen. Thank you for having the courage and the passion for our students and our community to be here and to join us. Similarly with Lizette and Mary Beth, thanks for, you knew what you were getting into and you still came back. So thank you very much for that. It's just such a pleasure to have been working with you guys and to continue working with you, and now working with Carmen, and as well as Kim, who has been my partner throughout the beginning, those fateful days since 2016. So just want to thank you for that. And again, this time of year with Thanksgiving and the winter holidays, it's just a great reminder of how much we do have. It's often easy to focus on what's missing, but I just drive around this coast side and think, just looking at what we have and just thinking about the beautiful nature that we have in our environment, the beaches, the forests. It's like a little slice of just paradise that we have here, and thinking about the people in our community and just the the beautiful cultures we have are two predominant Latino and Anglo cultures, but certainly there are subsets within that as well, that if you could just stop and pause and look around and have gratitude for that, it's pretty amazing. I'm pretty happy for that. And this time of year for me always just is like a really nice reminder of that. I think also it's important that we don't look away from some of the hard things in our community and some of the significant disadvantages that many people do live with each day. It was really an honor to be part of the celebration a couple days ago with ALAS and their unveiling of an equity bus that is designed through support of many farm life science companies in the Bay Area to bring healthcare and social services to farm workers out on the ranches on the coast side. And that just puts things in perspective, where I had a parent telling me earlier today about a doctor's note for her daughter or something like that, and then just realizing like there are parts of our community that can't get to doctor's appointments, that doctors need to come to them. And I'm so grateful for the creativity and the vision that our partners at ALAS had to bring that service to those most in need. And because we do talk about equity a lot, and I think that is really important that we kind of have really truly an aligned vision of what that means. And really for me, and for our, as per our statement that I know we worked really long and hard on last year, it's to make it short and sweet. It really is about not necessarily providing everything to everyone when they want it. Of course, we all like that. I would love more than a $250 monthly budget, but it is what it is. I'm grateful for what we have. But it is really about providing the most useful supports for the most critical needs when they are needed. So, and that goes, of course, hand in hand with excellence. So I'm excited about the ongoing equity process as it feeds into our first ever strategic planning process later this year. And I'm confident that we're going to identify improvement opportunities through that overall process that are going to improve both equity, so for, both improving those most urgent needs, as well as excellence for everybody. Because you can't have one without the other. So that's really exciting about that process. Thank you, Leticia, for your leadership of that in collaboration with Dr. McFetridge and with our school leaders as well. They play a big role too. So not so exciting, but also surprising is the recommendation we will hear from our dear friend Jesus tonight regarding our budget that we do approve so with a qualified designation. And for people that aren't familiar with this process, that's not a good thing. It sounds kind of like, okay, it's qualified. Like, no, it's not that's qualified like it's good. It's qualified. It's like there's caveats to approving it, knowing that we need to fix it because there's a lot of red on it. And no one wants to return to those urgent cuts we had to make in 2019 when Dr. McFetridge and much of your leadership team first joined us. That was extremely painful when we had to reduce our spending by about $2 million in a very short time frame. We're looking at similar adjustments in the future. Fortunately, because of your management, we have a little bit of time, but there is still a lot of red. So I'd encourage anyone with interest in finance and budget, just look at that. And if you have questions after tonight's presentation, live or in video, wherever you might be watching it, even if it's 2 times on YouTube, like my kids watch their videos, please do reach out to Jesus, if I may, for an explanation of how it all works and what it all means. So, completely different topic. I would like to give a big shout out to Carlene Foldenauer, CUSD's Safe Routes to School lead, as well as Marin Holt of Coastside on Bikes, along with many staff at Cunha and the district, and our partners at the City of Half Moon Bay and at Caltrans, because we are finally going to see some improvements to the intersection at Highway 1 and Kelly Street, which underwent some temporary repairs upon a traffic accident that caused the felling of a couple of the large visible traffic lights. But there is a big advocacy effort that I was very proud to support together with those folks, and we are going to see some progress with yellow striped crosswalks, the traffic lights, of course. We'll have some temporary measures with signage just alerting drivers, because as people who frequent that intersection may know, there is a regular speeding through that red light, and that's horrific, thinking about how many kids are crossing the street to Cunha or to Hatch or to the district office, as well as staff. So I'm really thrilled for that partnership, and I think that really does exemplify how like collaborating not only cross functions within an organization, but collaborating across organizations really gets the results done, and really fostered our bond with Caltrans, I would say, and paves the way for more work with them. So lastly, it was fun to pull together and to start to deliver our small but heartfelt holiday gifts to our school sites from our governance team. The spirit of giving is sure enjoyable, and it's been really wonderful to connect with folks on campus. I was happy to see a couple of you, James and others, on campus earlier this week. So that's it from me. Okay, so with that, we will proceed to our student board member report. Catalina.
Okay, I'll go through all of the reports from each school. So starting with El Granada, our students have participated in some fabulous field trips recently. We especially enjoyed walking field trips to Quarry Park and surrounding areas. We've been learning about countries through the World Cup games, and have been enjoying viewing portions of the games together during recess and lunch. We've invited prospective kinder and TK families to our first of three tour offerings. We'll be holding our community construction update meeting this Thursday at 5:30 in our MU. This Friday we will enjoy our last day before the break with PG Day and a PTO-sponsored Wake Up and Read morning. At Fairlawn View, in November, Fairlawn View students participated in Ruby Bridges' Walk to School Day and learned about her courage and persistence as a young participant in the civil rights movement. Students also celebrated Continent Day last month by visiting classrooms dedicated to a specific African country or region. Students learned about Egyptian tombs, animals of Madagascar, Mount Kilimanjaro, and solar power developments in Morocco. It was a magical day. In December, we held our 42nd annual Holiday Bazaar with food, games, performances, shopping, and more, and it was a great way to kick off the holiday season. At Hatch, we were happy to host our first Hatch opera since the pandemic. Students and many parents welcomed the performance of La Boheme, presented by Hatch students and professional actors from the SF Opera Guild. Our K-5 student choir did an amazing job supporting the performance. Last week, Miss Cassie's replacement will begin shadowing to learn the administrative assistant role at Hatch. Her name is Natalie Cabrillo. We are very excited to have her join our office team. She is bilingual and lives with her family in the Half Moon Bay community. We hosted our book fair last week in the MU and had our holiday bazaar this Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. It was a great way to start off the holiday season. At Kings Mountain, we are looking forward to a kindergarten forum on December 14th, and all classes created Thanksgiving cards and winter holiday cards for the senior co-sider Meals on Wheels recipients. The 4th and 5th graders have joined our junior land storage program and started learning about native plants on the coast and germinating some native plants, as well as looking at the effect of fertilizer. We look forward to a national school-wide Jingle Mingle on Friday featuring cookies and cocoa for winter break. At Cunha, the end of the second quarter is taking place on Friday, December 16th. Basketball for boys and girls started this month, and we have a record number of students participating. Our partnership with Boys and Girls Club has increased participation in the Cunha sports program. The Math Department is piloting a new math curriculum from Desmos in McGraw-Hill. The Cunha Band marched in the Night of Lights parade, and our winter dance took place on Friday, December 9th. Finally, the arts and crafts class will complete their first mural in the quad at Cunha prior to winter break. At Half Moon Bay High School, final exams are being given this week. This is a new experience for our 9th graders. The CSU and UC application deadline has passed, and our students are awaiting the notice of acceptance to those university systems. We are pushing families to complete FAFSA and CSU equity audit, and we had a concert band and fall play performances last week. Winter sports have begun, and Half Moon Bay High School is piloting a new tutoring program which will restart a few weeks into the new semester. At Pilarcitos, we've had several students take and pass the CHSPE, the California High School Proficiency Exam, as well as one student who passed the high set, which is similar but for adult students. These students have now completed high school, and we congratulate them. Our students have now been working hard on making holiday wreaths, and those are on sale to the public now. At La Costa, we are excited to continue to get enrollees at our high school diploma for adult program. Enrollment for all programs is ongoing, and we are looking forward to having new students join us when we return to class on January 3rd. If anyone is interested in English as a second language classes or high school diploma equivalency classes, please call the school. We are also looking forward to looking for teachers for our K-12 success program, ESL for seniors, ESL for computer learning, and a teacher for our new program, Integrated Basic Education Skills and Training, that will be offered with partnership at CSM, with the CSM. Any interested teachers should contact the office as well. Finally, at Los Listos, we had our community breakfast with all the preschool parents and special education students parents were invited as well. We had high attendance, and it was great to see all the parents together and doing an activity together with their children. Sonrisas is coming to the preschool on Thursday, December 15th, and they're doing a dental screening for all the students. And the Half Moon Bay Library is hosting TK Kindergarten Information event on Thursday, December 15th from 5 to 7. All preschool student parents at Los Listos have been invited. And that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Catalina. Lots going on. Okay, so with that, we go to item 5E, our superintendent report.
I just want to say thank you to Catalina, too. It's a lot of the things that you mentioned that I don't need to mention. Last week, I had the opportunity to go to the adult school, La Costa Adult School, and meet all the members of the leaders of the Excel Adult School Consortium. So I want to thank Adult School, La Costa Adult School Director Drew Gamet for inviting me to that. I got to meet with the fabulous James Barnes and Lizeth Bendanya, as I regularly do, just walking over there last week also, and it's always good to see what you guys are up to, and I want to call the board's attention to that. Tonight they will, and the public's attention, tonight they will present on Pilarcitos High School and the great work you guys are doing toward accreditation and becoming an alternative high school and less of a continuation high school. I really appreciate that. So Andy Boysen, I think, is in the house representing Half Moon Bay High School along with Mr. Olson. Did Andy leave? I see Ms. Schwen too. Thank you so much for being here. And Mr. Olson, thank you so much for leading you and your colleagues this last couple years toward ethnic studies development. And I know there's some public comments. And Pat, I really appreciate your work on that. And we'll hear about that later. I do also want to thank, I see Doug Machado and Brianna LaFontaine. I did meet with them, was it yesterday? Just yesterday, but it feels like we've met several times on this issue about the ongoing work to do at Phase 2 and look at what we can afford. And we will bring back recommendations as soon as QKA. We met with QKA the other day. Once we get Phase 2 underway, we will definitely be able to come up with estimates, and then we will make proposals for Phase 2 at El Granada, and then make adjustments from there. But we will also follow up, and I've asked Mr. Contreras to follow up with Brianna to talk about existing funding on the bond. I do want to thank Kendra Holland, of the PTO president at Hatch, who had me at Hatch last week, answer some good questions from that PTO. So it's always a joy when I can spend some time with PTO. I want to thank Hanalani. You're here. Did I get this right, Hanalani? So Hanalani is presenting, or she's not presenting tonight, but she's here to make sure that you approve the consent, because there are Future Farmers of America field trips, and there is also on the consent item tonight approval of an agricultural communications and leadership course and text adoption. And I'm just so pleased. Last month I had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Schwen and Hanalani and her colleagues, and Lisa Longacre and Andy Boysen and folks like that at the high school, to talk about the direction that the agricultural science department is trying to take this to be college and career readiness. Do such great work with your UC approvals. I know Ms. Schwen, our assistant principal, one of our assistant principals at the high school, also here, I'm sure, waiting with bated breath to see that digital art and design too is in the text adoption. I also think that's a fantastic career technical education course. It's UC approved. I know you guys, once you get approval from the board, you'll go for UC approval. You'll see the certificated personnel report, the classified personnel report. I do want to bring up the last meeting, there was talk about the need for bolstered campus security efforts, and you will see a campus security assistant reclassification where we are dramatically increasing that pay. And that is something that we worked with CSEA. So I want to thank Diane Powley, the president of CSEA, for working with us to get more pay for the campus security assistant, so can address that issue. And then we have to approve a temporary food transportation duty so that we can get food delivered to Kings Mountain with the advent this year of free meals, free lunch and breakfast, and a new contract with a food service group. We've had to do that. You will also see the increase to the adult education teacher hourly rate, because that is, I think, Fund 11. It is separate from our general fund. It costs us nothing, but it is money that is available to the adult school, and the adult school is increasing that La Costa teacher hourly rate. And there is an approval of AT&T communication tower. I just want to bring this up. It's something that you saw last spring, I believe, last winter, where we proposed two locations at AT&T. AT&T determined that PG&E had a unclaimed, as yet, easement in the air from 1969. And although we approached PG&E to see if they would quit claim the easement, they elected not to do so, and so we had to go to that fallback location, and so we are recommending approval of that fallback location closer to the football field and not near the softball field. We also had a overrun of cost on the Cunha Library, and that is on the consent agenda, and we had to bring that. I think it's to the tune of $60,000 or so. Did I get that right? So we bringing that and hoping that that finalizes the work on that library. I just want to say that this is a time also when I'm filled with gratitude and thanks to our partners. I see Corinne Bucher in the house, and I was able right before Thanksgiving to go to the Boys and Girls Club Gala and see a lot of our partners and community members without, everyone partnering, the PTOs, the Boys and Girls Club, the Cabrillo Education Foundation, Ayudando Latinos a Soñar, HEAL Project. I spoke with Amy Bono today. Without our partners, of course, all this work would be much more difficult. So I thank all of you as partners. I'm grateful to you all, for those who contribute, whether it's in ideas, in thinking, in tough questions, in money, in services. As partners, I'm grateful to you, and I wish everyone a happy holiday.
Thank you very much, Dr. McFetrich. Okay, it brings us to item 6, consent agenda. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Rosie?
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Mary Beth. We are doing roll call for consent agenda. Sophia?
Aye.
Kimberly? Aye. Carmen?
Aye.
Lisette? Aye. Mary Beth?
Aye.
Catalina? This item passes 5+1.
Right, thank you, Rosie. Okay, item 7, general business. First up, 7A, Pilarcitos High School presentation and WASC accreditation update.
Hi, we have here Miss Lisette Bendaña and Mr. James Barnes from Pilarcitos High School, who will present all the wonderful happenings at Pilarcitos, along with a little more information on WASC accreditation.
Well, thank you all for having us up here. Thank you, President Lane, and our new board member, Ms. Daniel. Welcome. Dr. McFetrich and district staff, all the rest of the board. My name is James Barnes. I'm the coordinator of student services for the district, and per my job description, a quarter of my time is also principal of Pilarcitos, which I'm enormously pleased to be. I'm very glad to have that hat. It's been a great experience working at Pilarcitos. I'm so glad to be there, and amongst fantastic students, terrific colleagues, a place of real peace and support for our kids. That's so important for what they need. And of course, I'd also like to introduce Lisette Bendaña, who's our lead teacher at Pilarcitos. Go ahead, Rosie, if you want to advance. Or do I have a clicker? Ooh. All right, I think I got this. All right. So Pilarcitos High School, or Alternative High School, is at its core the continuation school for the district. So it's serving students who are credit deficient to the extent that it is not going to be possible for them to be able to graduate on time from Half Moon Bay High School. So when they transfer to Pilarcitos, they're able to accelerate the courses they take, get a lot of intensive support from Ms. Bendanya, our other staff. We have 2 or 3 other staff members. We have one other teacher, full-time teacher, a part-time special ed teacher. We have a wellness counselor, academic counselor, schooling services counselor. We've been very well blessed with support services this year. So those students need a small supportive setting, and that's what we give them. So individualized education, and the idea is they do get their high school diploma, and they can either get that, perhaps they recover their credits and return to the high school, or they get a Pilarcitos high school diploma, or they complete their high school requirements. They turn 18. Many of our students are close to being 18 or near 18 when they get to us, and then they can take the high set and get their high school equivalency. The other piece that our teachers at Pilarcitos do, they teach the Pilarcitos kids till about a half day, till about 12:15. After that, they meet with our independent study students. Now, the independent study students belong to, for the most part, Half Moon Bay High School. They're Half Moon Bay High School students, but our teachers help them with their the classes they're doing online through things like Edgenuity, UC Scout, other programs, meet with them and make sure they stay on track. So that's a huge job, and we have a number of students there. I think we are about at 54 at last count of independent study students who are taking from 1 to 6 or 7 courses that have to be overseen. And so I just also wrote our kind of mission statement. Here's what we believe. We believe it's our responsibility to serve our students' educational needs in an alternative setting that is customized for each student. Our school's educational objectives, within the scope of our district's goals, offer youth the opportunity to develop necessary skills needed to function as successful, contributing members of our community.
I just want to say the picture is worth 1,000 words. How was that contributing to the community, Mr. Barnes?
Well, I said, you know, we've got this haunted house sitting right there in front of the district office and next to Pilarcitos, and it's Halloween.
I did so appreciate seeing your students, and thank you for having them over to decorate that one last time before maybe that disappears.
They had a fabulous time. It was fantastic. Thank you for mentioning that. Ms. Bedania.
Good evening, everyone. I am proud to talk about PBIS at Pilarcitos. We have been continuing, we've never stopped with PBIS for the past 7 years. As you can see, our core principles are emblazoned or immortalized on our building. It's hard to forget PBIS at Pilarcitos. And it's a core part to how we onboard during our intro week for all students. We take everybody through the settings and we go over how you can be respectful, compassionate, and responsible in all the different settings. And this year we added the office as a setting because we share the students. We really want them to feel at home. So the teacher workroom is open to the students as well. They'll come in and make coffee and say hello to whoever is there. So it was really important to us that we walk them through that, and they created those expectations.
Okay, so this part here, the data overview, and it's important to remember as we go through a couple slides on data, this is an area that we really examined hard when we did our WASC report, and I'll talk about where we're going with that as we go through. So if you look at our population, we have a high percentage of students with disabilities, 36%, 75% socioeconomically disadvantaged. We have a fairly high percentage of English learners, 24% this year. It's dipped down a little bit over the past few years with a rise of reclassified students, and I think that's partly a testament to the district's efforts to reclassify students. And we do reclassify a handful of students each year ourselves. But for the most part, a lot of our kids, 42% at the last English learner testing came in about 42% at level 3. So for our students, it is a big lift to move forward to reclassification. And then for testing, in terms of like the CASP testing, you can see very few of our students actually tested in the last testing years, in 2018, 19, and again in 22. So 3, 7, and 2. And that's certainly not enough to get us on the state dashboard. So we don't get that kind of data from them. This is not really useful data. And that's one thing we'll be trying to address, and that's, again, part of our WASC action plan to increase the number. We do have, currently, we have 39 students who are Pillar CETOS students. And a good chunk of them do come and attend regularly and should be able to test, although it is not easy necessarily for that particular population of students to get through the testing. But I think we can increase that over the numbers we've seen here. And our graduation rate was pretty fantastic this last year for Pillar CETOS, 75%. Normally it's about 50, but that is to do with AB 104 that reduced the requirements for graduation for students with particular issues going on, homelessness, for instance. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Lizeth to talk about our experiential learning program.
I won't be too verbose about what we do just because of time, and because we've presented our experiential learning before to the board. So I'm just going to give some highlights tonight. Our Monarch Mystery class goes out to the Wavecrest area every Monday, and we are monitoring and observing the return of the monarchs for the overwintering time here on the coast side. That particular area was used to have thousands, if not millions, maybe about 20 years ago, and it dwindled down. The winter 2018, we saw one. But our observations match the data that has happened in the last few years. And in one of those pictures that you see in that slide, that is a picture of butterflies mating, which was super exciting for our students to see and get footage of. Another class that we're all very proud of is the Native Restoration class, and we're continuing our work with the volunteers at Francis State Beach Park, who have been at it for maybe about 15 years. We've been at it with them for about 6 years, and we're redoing our most ambitious spot right by the kiosk as you drive in. And lastly, our farm program that isn't just on the farm, it's also on campus when we bring back food from the farm and when we prepare it for the school, including Mr. Barnes, who I just want to say, he's fan favorite. And we're all super happy to have him with us. We didn't know how much we needed you, but we really did. This class is a really special class because students, when they're on the farm, they get to shed whoever they have to be on campus, and they can be not just farmers, learners, scientists, all kinds of things. You get to see parts of their personality that you've never seen. And then when we all cook together, it is really special. A big part of the Farm to Desk class is to get your food handler license to participate, so I sprinkle in a little bit of CTE there. You're all invited every Wednesday, 11 o'clock. And speaking of CTE, we do try to embed career preparation in mostly everything we do. We all look forward to Career Week, which is a partnership with the Rotary, and it's something that we all look forward to. And lastly, our restorative circles are what we call Coyote Circle class. We could consider that a career and life skill because it not only is a place for us to connect, to build, but it's also a place to learn, to practice communicating with each other in healthy ways. We have students lead our circles, and just this past Monday, we were talking about eventually inviting district leadership and board members to our circle so you can experience what it looks like to have students lead discussions that can be very meaningful.
And I'd just like to say a lot of, in education, there's a lot of talk about restorative justice. And in a lot of places, I think it's more aspirational than practice. But I want you to know that at Pilarcitos, it is deeply embedded in their practice and culture. And I have begun to experience that in ways I've never have in any of the other work that I've done at any of the schools. And it's very inspiring.
And we are very grateful to Ms. Bendanya for carrying that torch and leading that direction, and I'm hoping to lead that direction for the district coming soon.
Okay, so WASC accreditation. Now, you may be familiar with that from Half Moon Bay High School, which comes periodically to give you about WASC reports that they have done. So the Western Association of Schools and Colleges accredits high schools, basically telling colleges and institutions that the work being done in the school is adequate to prepare the students for entry into college. So, for instance, they can qualify for UC CSU admission if they take the requisite number of courses, and the school is accredited to do that. And while most high schools, comprehensive high schools, have been going through this process going way back, for Pilarcitos, this is a new thing. We have never been an accredited school. And I think there has been just simply the thought that perhaps it's not necessary for our population of students. Most of them are not likely to go to a four-year college right off the bat, more likely to go to a community college or perhaps a trade school of some kind, or simply into the world of work. But there are reasons and opportunities that we can that make it a necessary step for Pilarcitos. While we still expect that some of our students, few might actually go directly to a four-year, we don't want them to not be eligible. And we want that opportunity for them. As well, there's a number of different scholarships and other benefits that you have to have come from an accredited high school in order to get. And we also don't want to deprive our students of that. It's a matter of equity. Our students who graduate from a district high school should have the same opportunities whichever high school they graduate from. So it's very, very important to us. Plus the process of WASC accreditation, which I've been through a number of different times, both leading it for Half Moon Bay High School, being part of it at Half Moon Bay High School. I've led WASC accreditation teams at other schools. So it's something that I'm fairly familiar with. So coming to this job, one of the expectations was I could lead this to accreditation. So we went ahead and just jumped right into it. So we began putting together a report where I brought in all the staff, when we had students working on aspects of it, and I put together, with the help of all our colleagues, a report that went to WASC. That's the initial visit report. We submitted that in September. We had our visit in November. So we had a visiting committee member come and do a virtual visit with us, and they'd read our report and had recommendations based on what we had studied about ourselves, what we felt were the major issues at Pilarcitos that we wanted to work on. And then, so they have written a report, and I'll discuss that in a second, and they gave that to us the very next day, and it was important that they ratified and reflected to us that, yes, what you've identified as the issues you want to work on, both the things that you feel you do well and the things where you have an area of growth, we agree with that. And that's a very important report back from WASC. And so it takes a little while for the accreditation process to begin, but we expect our initial 3-year accreditation, that's standard for a school that's newly getting accredited. We expect them to give us that news sometime between January and February of this coming year. And the WASC visiting member said it was a joy to visit us, so we have high expectations and high hopes. And so here's the recommendations that we identified ourselves and that they agreed with, that we should develop a systematic data assessment process so that we can both making sure we're using other assessments that we have existing, such as the CASP, as well as creating assessments that will help us determine ways to support our students further. Tracking data, for instance, on credits and coursework completion rates, because we have students that move individually on very different personal tracks, and being able to track that and understand, make sure we know where we are and help our population that way. That'll help us teach and lead better for them. And attendance rates of students, that is a major issue for Pilarcito students. It's often what got them to be Pilarcito students in the first place, attendance issues, and therefore lack of success in passing classes and so on. It becomes a vicious cycle. So that's a major piece. There are a contingent of our students who's very hard to get to Pilarcitos, and if they don't come, they don't succeed, they don't graduate. And so we want to work on that too. And as well as increased parent communication and involvement. It's not as easy as some schools where you have high levels of parent involvement. Many of these students are adults or near adults, and the families have backed off a little bit. Getting them engaged in their students' education and participating in the life of the school is a goal of ours, and we want to keep working on that. Excuse me. And the other piece I wanted to speak about, because we also run the independent study program for the district, just wanted to make sure you understood how that operated. So our independent study program is, again, these are Half Moon Bay High School students that we serve. And for the most part, they're at home working through Edgenuity, on UC Scout, other types of concurrent enrollment in community colleges and other programs. We do have a small number of elementary and middle school students who come to us. In some ways, it's a little bit like a way of doing homeschool. Either they're using one of our Edgenuity virtual curricula with certificated instructors, or different kinds of home-based programs, and our middle schoolers can use the same Edgenuity program that the high schoolers use. And for some students who, for reasons, are no longer able to be part of the middle school or the high school, they can be on the Cabrillo Independent Study Program, alternative education. And there's two types of independent study that we generally have, either full-time, that's what you do, you don't go to classes at the high school, for instance, or we have what we call course-based independent study, where you could be taking some courses at the high school, some online and working with us, and that can be kind of a mix and match. And sometimes it's a social emotional issue. The student maybe needs a reduced schedule at the high school. It can be pretty overwhelming sometimes at a comprehensive high school, and this gives them a little bit of a break and helps them continue with their work. And just going forward, there's a lot of exciting things that are happening at Pilarcitos. I mentioned we have an academic counselor for the first time, Stacy Myrick, who's also a wellness counselor for us. We have schooling services. We have a cool program through our Ed Services department, Step into High School, where some of our students at Half Moon Bay High School actually come down to Pilarcitos to do adaptive PE. In terms of data, one of the most important initiatives that our teachers have taken is to create pre- and post-tests that measure student progress towards the standards. So regardless of what's happening with statewide standardized testing, we will have our own measures of student progress at the school. And our vision, and I think Dr. McFetridge mentioned it earlier, to be a true alternative school, not just a continuation school, a place of last resort, but for students whose other needs, perhaps, make our school a good choice for them for that individualized education support. And if they know that they can go to a four-year college, they may still be academic, they may be academically strong, but Half Moon Bay High School isn't the place for them. We can be that place for them. We want to improve on career technical education, perhaps focusing on culinary arts. We already have a great start with that, with the Farm to Desk program. And looking into the future, potentially partnerships with community colleges for types of dual enrollment. So these are some of the things we're looking at. Some of them will take a lot of different change and effort, but a vision of change for the future is and expanding what Pilarcitos can do for this district and our kids is where we're at. So I think that is the last piece. So thank you very much, and please, any questions?
Thank you very much, James and Lizette. This is not an item for approval, it's just for information, so we can go straight to questions and comments.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate the breadth of services you provide, and that it truly is a safety net for students in the district. And pursuing the WASC accreditation is fabulous. I did notice that you had 36% students with disabilities. And I step back. Have most of the students at Pilar Rositas been with us through elementary?
Yeah, I would say so. Most of them have been through, and then, and of course we promote students for the most part throughout, K through 8, but then when high school comes, then the necessity to pass all the classes in order to graduate is where us kids begin to falter. And
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But most of them are our students and have been since K.
Okay, and for the students with disabilities, were they identified special ed in elementary? Do you know?
I don't know if it happened in elementary, but generally they come to us with IEPs.
Got it.
So they've been identified and have been special ed along the way. I think that's true.
Okay, it's just kind of a trigger. Perhaps another time we could talk about special ed, kind of comprehensive across the district. I don't know that we have done that. We've done it's been a long time. So that might be a good refresher just to kind of bookend and pull that to the surface for continuity. So thank you so much.
Sure. I was just going to say, one of the things we're looking at trying to create is a way of examining some data to see what factors, going back to earlier grades, that some of the students who go to the continuation school have in common. So what kinds of things where they were having academic problems, attendance problems, other kinds of supports needed, social emotional problems, could be disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. There can be a number of different factors. Can you sort of predict to some extent some of the kids that are at risk of needing continuation school and perhaps do something about that before they get there?
I just want to make a comment that, first of all, to thank you so much for being here, and to just say every time you guys come here and present, every time I speak with you and visit, I just feel that magic that is at Pilarcitos, and it is so special to that school community that you've built. And I know James is pretty new, but fits right in, and just to hear you two speak together and complement each other as well as a team leading the school, and with Dudley and the others there, and Stacy and everybody and all the staff there. I think to me it's so heartwarming and so special, your love for your students with all their bumps and warts, your love for each other with all the bumps and warts. And to me, I think I say it every time you're here, I feel like it is a model for our whole district in so many different ways in terms of your student centricity. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. And that is so special, and I'm just so appreciative of that. And again, I feel like and we do a lot of learning and education by doing visits. I would definitely encourage folks to really see what good looks like and come to Pilarcitos and come to a meal, come to a restorative justice or restorative circle, come to whatever, buy a wreath. I don't know if you want to put a plug where they can be bought, because probably, we could probably make some sales.
We're sold out.
Oh, you're sold out. Okay. They are beautiful. I saw them the other day, and they are gorgeous. So I don't have questions. I just want to thank you and appreciate your presentation and the work that you do that has both heart and smart. I think it's such a good combination for our students, and it's such a great model. So that's all. Thank you.
I had a question around independent study. I know it's been very different since COVID, and there's been a lot of scrambling around. Is there still a wait list for that, or how have we been able to accommodate? Go ahead.
Yes, there is a wait list right now because we are over our numbers. Even we added a .5 independent study teacher, Molly Schauer. She also helped out with us last year, but even with that extra teacher, we still have a wait list, and we're going through it, looking at what are the most extreme cases.
Big wait list? Small?
Well,
Medium?
if our max is 42 and we're at 56, and so any wait list is big.
You talked a little bit about Career Day too, and I think of it since Corinne is sitting here too. Are you happy with how all that's going? I just know they've been doing a lot with Career Day at the high school. Is there any opportunities for overlapping or helping or,
We would love to overlap. Any type of presentations are welcome. I don't know if Career Day and Career Week are the same thing. Are they both put on by the Rotary? Is what you're talking about put on by the Rotary?
No, Corinne's with CEF, and and Karen Hoffman's been in on it. I don't know, talk
So
to
it's
her.
the
but-
real-life learning work.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great. Anything we can do to sort of enhance the whole program for the district kids.
Okay, and then my last thing is, well, two more things. One is the restorative practice stuff. I'm so happy to hear about that. That's amazing. I'm really happy to hear about that. And then the last comment I have is, I know I'm a broken record on this, so I'll just be quick on it, but the concurrent enrollment, it still bothers me that it's different if you're a student at Half Moon Bay High School versus a student at high school, Half Moon Bay High School, but in independent study, that your requirements are different for what you need to do. So I think you probably, know about that, and I know it's probably on your radar, but I just wanted to bring that up as a concern that I see, that I think it should be fair, that's all.
I think it is a goal of Lizeth and James to be able to maximize dual enrollment opportunities, and I think that's a next step in their accreditation process. And I think that is sort of the direction that the high school is going to after the...
Well, I'm talking concurrent, but...
Oh, you're talking about concurrent enrollment?
Concurrent enrollment.
That is something, well, there are a few concurrent enrollment or dual enrollment. I'm not sure if you're talking about college classes on the campus.
No.
You're talking about just being able to go to college, period, full stop.
Right, like if you're physically at the high school, you have to jump through different hoops than if you're doing independent study to be able to take classes at the community college.
Yeah, we should have a policy that binds us all and allows all our students to be able to attend community college. And I think that we did work with county council to determine that. So we'll look into that for sure.
Yeah, it just should be fair, that's all. I mean, it was a loophole before, people were going to independent study so they could, I just want it to be fair, that's all.
There's been an effort from the high school and from, in general, for us to look at that policy. But Dr. Bhatia, we can look at that about how we make a more standard rule that is fair and equal across the board so that concurrent enrollment is guaranteed. The law in Ed Code is pretty clear on that.
Well, and just not guaranteed, but you
Promoted.
should have to jump through the same hoops no matter which way you go. Like right now, if you don't want to jump through the hoop, you can just go the other way and make it easier. But not everybody knows about that.
We share that goal.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. We want
It's
kids.
not terrible, it's just bring it up.
No, but I hear that, and I think this is a
Like the
growing pain that I think we talked about last year, too. I think the district is in general just looking at how can we have students have more opportunities for college credit while they're in high school. And you're pointing out something that I think in the past was a workaround, and now we're trying to make mainstream. Thank you.
I'd like to also thank you guys for all the hard work, and I'm really excited to see that you guys are doing it to do the WASC accreditation, because I think there's a lot that's going on that that needs to be validated. So thank you for all the work. I would also like to be invited to one of your restorative justice circles. I am in juvenile probation, and that is something that's coming across a lot. So if ever you have one, invite me. I do have a full-time job, but I will make it a point to try and figure out how I could make it. And also, I really like the emphasis on the parent involvement. I think that's very important, and for very different reasons, like some of the examples you guys gave, it eventually just falls through the cracks, and it is very important. And I saw it in the graduation that you guys put together for the kids and their families, and it's so amazing. So if that could happen, more involvement could happen before they're done with or done and moving on. And if there is any way I could help and support you, please reach out to me, Lisette. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. And really quick, I'm looking at the English language numbers, and so they are students that have pretty much been in our district for a while. Okay, because those numbers are really sad to know that they're that age and we've missed them from the beginning is very sad. So thank you for all the work and thank you for being here tonight.
Great. Thank you, everybody. If there are no more questions or comments, we will thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having us up
Thank
here.
you. All right, up next, item 7B, public hearing and presentation of ethnic studies course and text adoption for 2023-2024. We'll have introduction, Leticia.
Yes. Hi, so I do want to introduce Mr. Patrick Olson, who since 2021 has been working on the development of our ethnic studies presentation. I feel honored to have seen his work. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer Schwan, for supporting this work. In 2021, Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 101, requiring ethnic studies to be taught beginning 2025. Through Mr. Olson's leadership, Mr. Galvan also assisted in some of this development over the last few years. Also support from San Mateo County Office of Ed. I do feel that Cabrillo Unified School District is a pioneer thanks to Mr. Olson. We are implementing ethnic studies beginning 2023, and this is 2 years earlier than what is the required 2025. I also wanted to let you know that we did consult, and I consulted with San Mateo County Office of Ed Partners, did some research with California Department of Ed, and so all of the work is aligned to the new required curriculum. In addition, I also want to say that this ethnic studies course is feeding right into our equity work that we're doing this year. And now we have Mr. Olson. Thank you so much.
Your microphone, please.
Press the face.
There, that red button? Oh, wow. Usually I don't need a microphone, so.
You're radio ready, Pat.
Radio ready. All right, so what exactly is ethnic studies? That's the big question, I guess. So this is probably the course description that will go in our student planning guide, this paragraph. Most of the course descriptions are about this length. So the ethnic studies course aims to educate students on the ways in which race, ethnicity, and culture have shaped and continue to shape individuals and society in the U.S. By studying the histories of race, ethnicity, nationality, sexuality, and culture, students will learn to cultivate respect and empathy for individuals and groups of people nationally and locally. So with regards to the timeline, some of this was mentioned already by Leticia, but the California legislature, Governor Newsom, established the law that mandates all California public high schools require 1 semester of ethnic studies by the time students would graduate in May or June of 2030. So if you do the math on that, that would require that the latest we could be in compliance with Governor Newsom and the state education folks would be if we would offer 9th graders, and this will be at the 9th grade level, and I'll talk about why in a minute. 9th graders will have this course as a 1 semester class. The latest we could do it would be in the 25 and 26 school year to meet that mandate. But we, CUSD, will implement ethnic studies starting this next school year. So it's our goal to have it in place and ready to go for 23-24. So we'll be a couple years ahead. We are not the only district that will be a year or 2 or 3 years ahead. In doing some of our research, I found the number of districts that have already offered ethnic studies, probably on bigger high schools as an elective course for students, mostly taken by juniors and seniors. But there are also, some schools doing it in this manner that have already moved forward to beat Governor Newsom's timeline, so to speak, his deadline. So research and implementation, the San Mateo County through Gwen Lee, who actually I took a class from when I got my teacher's credential, she was my instructor, my professor. And so we go back quite some time. And so she set up this series of ethnic studies curricular training workshops. The workshops were somewhat interesting in the recommendation is that districts pattern ethnic studies to their particular ethnic audience. So ethnic studies would look very different at a high school in Oakland than it would at Half Moon Bay High School, or it might in a school in Orange County. You know, it depends on what your ethnicity is. Obviously here, our big ethnicity is our school is about half Latino. So in our trainings we've gone to, that's been some of this discussion is, you know, and I was kind of disappointed because I'm a guy that likes direction. I want to know, okay, what are we supposed to teach? What are the units? And that's how U.S. history is laid out, which I teach. And ethnic studies, there's a teeny bit more wiggle room. There's more flexibility in some of the sessions and trainings we've been in. So along with myself, Mr. V and Mr. Galvin attended those last year. So we're kind of into our second year of this process. This year is kind of year 2. And, you know, there I kind of stole my third bullet already. Yeah, what's the ethnic diversity of your particular school district? As I started to plan out, I'm a detail person. I don't like to show up and not know what I'm teaching for the year. So I really wanted to lay out each unit, and I'm kind of anal. I wanted to lay out every day. That's always how I've been. I know what I'm doing every day. And it kills me when there's a school day that we miss or something, and I'm like, how am I going to make that back up? So I wanted to really be organized about what the semester looks like. What will the units look like? So at that point, as I started to get into it, I began to reach out to some other districts. I just kind of, you know, Googled and I looked up other school districts and saw their ethnic studies and, you know, borrowed some of the curriculums from other districts, melded them in with the Half Moon Bay audience, met with Mr. V a couple times. We met during the summer, and we began to kind of lay out what a semester would look like. So that's kind of the background of how we arrived to plan the class. All right, I'm so used to my students, I always say, next slide. And I have a student in my class that pushes the button, and I was about to say, next slide. All right, so the textbook, and, you know, I looked at books. I'll be honest, they don't exist. They're hard to find. The ethnic studies books that I did find, like your traditional kind of textbook, they're college level. These are 9th graders. And so some of, you know, one book I got was very wordy, like an AP book, you know, kind of thing. And this is not an AP class, with all due respect to the course. It's not advanced placement. So I found 3 or 4 districts that were using this book. And then I found 2 or 3 more. And so I think during the summer, I was emailing with you, and then you wrote back the critical question, what about schools around us? So I got kind of lucky, I guess, because then I called over the hill or looked over the hill, and everywhere I looked, this book kept popping back up. It's not your standard, you know, chapter by chapter laid out textbook. Really what it is, it's a series of essays or articles that relate to ethnic studies, and it has everything in there. There's articles about African American, Latino, Japanese internment camps. There's a lot of different things that cover almost every ethnic group in the USA that are in the book. So it's an easy read for high school 9th graders. It's a paperback. That concerns me a little bit because how will the students handle it? It's my goal, since the book's not super expensive, it's not your $100 typical big high school clunky textbook. It's like $18 or $20 or something on Amazon. It's my hope that we can give the kids a home copy and then have copies in the classroom, because if they carry them around, they're going to get beat up because they are paperback and it's only about this big. So, but obviously that's a conversation that we'll have as we get closer to deciding if, you know, when we purchase books, etc. So where does it fit on the schedule? This is the interesting thing. So when I first became a high school teacher, it was kind of shocking to me as I taught 9th grade, that was my first position at the high school, to learn that the state of California had no requirements whatsoever for social studies for 9th grade until now. Districts have always been kind of open to do what they want. Most districts do a hybrid like we do, a semester and in Redwood City, they call it safety, a safety class or safety course. We call it life skills. So there's one semester, and I don't know if Mr. Barnes is still here. Mr. Barnes and I co-taught for many, many years. So we teach sex education, we teach driver's ed, we teach about drug and alcohol decision making. So we nicknamed the course Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. So that course will still exist on our schedule, that one semester. The second semester had always been world geography, and about 4, 5, 6 years ago, James, we renamed that World Studies. Basically the same class, but kind of different conceptions of how the units worked. So that's the class that kind of has to go away. We have nowhere else we can fit this on our schedule. It's a social studies course. You know, 10th grade, their students have to take world history. They can do regular world history, mainstream, or they can take AP. As 11th graders, they must take U.S. history or advanced placement. And as 12th graders, they must take government/econ. So the only logical place to place this is in the 9th grade year. So it's a one semester course. That's the mandate from Governor Newsom. And so we've always taught, not always, the first couple years I taught, we did life skills just in the 4th quarter. And we kind of flipped the order because we thought it would be nicer to welcome our 9th graders with discussions. Really, our first unit that we've taught for years is ethnic studies. We've done a 3-week unit about race and getting along. And in that unit, we do note-taking skills. We talk about the credits game. The students come from CUNY where they're promoted at the high school. They don't promote along. They must graduate and earn units. So the first 3 or 4 weeks has always been kind of welcome to Half Moon Bay High School. Here's how high school works. And then once we get through that unit, we have our tobacco education, then we do drug and alcohol, and then driver's ed, et cetera. So, and then in the second semester, we traditionally have done the world studies. So the first semester will not change. It's our idea, goal, that we'll still have life skills. We have to have driver's ed. That's been something we've had in our district for a long time. We are also mandated, not by Newsom, but by a couple governors before. We have to do a comprehensive sex education course. That was, I think, Governor Brown's mandate. So that's been on our docket for a long time. We've always put that in the life skills semester. The only other place, I think, at the high school where maybe that would possibly fit would be science, but they have 36 weeks of curriculum. We have more wiggle room in freshman year of social studies, given that for many years there was no state mandate. So that's where we placed sex education. So that course we won't touch much, except we'll have more time because we'll pull some of that, pardon me, some of that first unit. Some of the ethnic studies we're already doing will now go into the second semester. So the first semester we'll be able to spend more time and have more conversations about some of those things we're already teaching. So it's going to be in the second semester for 9th graders. It will have an impact on our master schedule. And I was going to say next slide again. And here's how. All right, so for the last few years, we have offered an advanced placement course for 9th graders. So for, students coming out of 8th grade, this has been kind of a nugget, for especially college-bound students to be able to come to Half Moon Bay High School and right away as a 9th grader have a year-long advanced placement course. Now, we can't offer that anymore unless a 9th grader wants to be super ambitious and have a 7-period day. So that option will go away. Now, I'm hopeful that I think what will happen is over time, AP Human Geography will become an elective for upper division junior and senior students that have an interest, a strong interest in social studies. 9th graders don't have the wiggle room on their schedule for an elective like that. Some of them might, but when they're in 11th and 12th grade, they will. So those 11th and 12th grade students may have an opportunity. The problem we have is that it's going to be a while because we have 9th graders now that are in AP Human Geography. So in 2 and 3 years, when they're juniors and seniors, they've taken the class, the ones that might have some real, interest in social studies. So I'm thinking probably like in 3 years, we'll see this class populate. We'll keep it on our schedule. We'll pitch it to the kids, but I don't know that we'll get a whole bunch of signups because so many 9th graders, current 10th graders, current 11th graders have already had that class when they were in 9th grade. So there'll be a little, couple of year thing. And then I think we'll probably be able, we're not going to have Mr. V who teaches AP, I think this year has 3 sections, at least 2, maybe 3. I don't think we'll see that many, but I think we should be able to populate 1 section of advanced placement and therefore keep that on our master schedule, by the time we get a couple, 3 years down the line, if that sort of makes sense. So that's how it impacts us, and it's where we have to fit it. We don't have a lot of room to put ethnic studies in any other curriculum. It's a social studies course. I mean, all the people I'm working with, and when I've done these trainings, we're all social studies teachers, every one of us. So it's a social studies class, and that's where it's going to live. So there's the deal. I don't know if there's questions, comments.
I just want to make a comment, if I may, before the board asks questions, and I know we have public comments on this too, which is I want to voice gratitude to you, Pat, to Mr. Van Wygarden, Mr. V, I think is what you're calling him.
Mr. V, it's easier to say.
Yeah, and Mr. Galvin for doing this, because I remember talking to Mr. Nazar a couple of years ago saying, okay, we're going to have a mandate, let's get this going. And then talking to him last year, and I know Andy Boyes, and I had written it on his whiteboard, so I know you guys were charged with let's get this done. I appreciate you getting it done in time. I also appreciate your choice of Mr. Tataki's book, which has been a classic since the 90s, since I began teaching. So I think that was a very good choice, actually, because it talks about the lived experiences through first-hand accounts of different ethnic groups, different cultures, different folks. So thank you very much for the work you do, Pat.
Thank you very much. And this is a discussion item, so no motion to approve is necessary, but we do have 2 public comments as well, so I wanted to read those first.
Sophia, this is a public hearing, so we should open the hearing and then take the comments.
Okay, so should I read the comments as part of the hearing?
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rosie. So I hereby open the public hearing for item 7B on our agenda. And I have 2 public comments. Have we received any more, Rosie, from people here in person?
No live comments, thank you.
Great, all right, so I'll read these 2 comments and then we'll close the public hearing. Okay, firstly from Julia Ron, El Granada Elementary parent and Cunha teacher. Greetings, board members and Superintendent McFetridge. As a fellow Cabrillo educator and parent of 2 young children in the district, I am writing in support of the adoption of ethnic studies as a required class at Half Moon Bay High School. This is a transformative course which develops students' critical consciousness about the world and their own identities while fostering empathy, joy, and action. Academic research, as well as years of experience from students and educators in neighboring schools, demonstrates the power of integrating ethnic studies into the high school experience. I want to commend the district for seeking to implement this course as a 9th grade requirement in advance of the state requirement so that our students can benefit from this course of study next year. I would also encourage continued effort to ensure that the high school's ethnic studies course is relevant to our community and its students. In part, this means making connections between broader historical and societal patterns and the experience and history of our coastside community. This is reflective of the broader goals of ethnic studies as a discipline and practice and will support students in being agents of transformative change in our community and beyond. I appreciate the time and effort that has gone into developing this course of study so far. I look forward to supporting continued efforts to refine it in collaboration with disciplinary experts and veteran ethnic studies educators so the class is a liberatory experience for our students. Sincerely, Julie Ron. And second comment, Jackie Viernes Rogers, community member, ethnic studies teacher, ethnic studies and LTEL coordinator for San Mateo Union High School District. Dear members of the governing board and Superintendent McFetridge, my name is Jackie Viernes Rogers and I'm a 3rd generation Coastside resident, a graduate of this district and parent to 2 young children. I currently teach ethnic studies and serve as the ethnic studies and long-term English learner coordinator for the San Mateo Union High School District. I had the great honor of being the first teacher at SMU HSD to pilot this course in 2018 at Capuchino High School.
This comment is to show my immense gratitude and support for the implementation of ethnic studies at Cabrillo Unified. I can personally attest to the impact that this would have as ethnic studies has changed and saved my life. Ethnic studies is transformative and humanizing. It centers identity by honoring and amplifying the counter-narratives of those whose stories have not been traditionally heard. Ethnic studies helps develop a critical consciousness while also centering joy, love, empathy, and action. This course is culturally and community responsive, sacred, liberating, and healing. I encourage those involved in this process to continue to seek out professional development opportunities to help develop a deeper understanding of ethnic studies content and pedagogy. It is imperative that this course be relevant and responsive to the community so that it may capture the true essence of what ethnic study is. This quote by Dr. Jason Ferreira, an ethnic studies professor at SFSU, embodies why this course is so meaningful to me. Ethnic studies is bigger than a syllabus and bigger than a practice in a classroom. It is more than an adjective and a noun. It's a verb, like love. Unapologetically, ethnic studies is something you practice and live. Thank you to the board and staff for your continued support. I look forward to connecting with you to further the movement for ethnic studies on the coast side. In community, Jackie Bernays Rogers. Great. Okay. And with that, we can open up for we'll close the public. Thank you, Mary Beth. Close the public hearing and open up for board discussion, questions and comments.
Thank you so much for your presentation and the overview, and I'm excited for Half Moon Bay High School. And Jackie said it herself. I was just going to mention that we had a Half Moon Bay High School graduate who's been teaching ethnic studies for some years, and she actually helped facilitate one of our board workshops. And so I'm sure she would be a willing resource for our community anytime, because she does live here in town. So thanks.
So is the mandate for a semester or year, and one semester, and all the other schools are doing one semester as well?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there has to be a lot. I don't need that.
Oh,
But
you do for TV.
and I know. So I did found a few districts, probably at Cappuccino High School, since it was they started back in 2018, where they offer it as a one-year elective class. So students at, again, bigger campuses where kids may have more choices, you probably would see it as a one-year elective up until now, but the mandate from Governor Newsom is one semester. And at Half Moon Bay High School, starting next year, it will be a one-semester course, life skills and then ethnic studies.
Great, and thank you for all your work. It's amazing. And you're ahead of the curve. I love it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you as well. And I'm pleased and honored to be in this board and having this start, even though it's just a one semester, which I don't think is enough personally. But I do appreciate your feedback to realize that it looks very different in every school district, and to just be aware. Everybody says we're very diverse. We're really not very diverse, but there are a lot of subgroups, and thank you for doing this. It's a great start, but I don't think it's enough, but it's a great start.
Thank you so much. And first of all, it was really cool to hear that you are a planner. I didn't know that about you, and we've worked together in various regards, and I'm a planner too, so I kind of feel like we have a little kindred spirit there. Obviously, my job here is to plan different things, but I thought that was really cool because I can relate to that a lot of the time. And just thank you and Mr. V and the third person, I don't know the third person. Mr. Galvin as well, for putting this together, again, ahead of schedule, to just show that we do what's right for kids, first and foremost, and for our community. And this, I think, it will be a major contributor to our equity work that we're doing just more broadly. And I appreciated, too, some of the public comments alluded to this, and you spoke to this as well, Mr. Olson, about how to be effective, an ethics studies course needs to really be somewhat tailored to its own community, while bringing in kind of the broader world, because our students will grow up and go to different places, and they will work with different communities. But as Lizette pointed out, our community is predominantly Latino and Anglo, And so I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are around involving some of our, like, local community leaders to participate in some way, shape, or form to this, to make sure that it is indeed relevant. If there are ways or opportunities that we can support you through the Latinx Roundtable to connect you with local leaders that have strong cultural expertise. Leticia obviously has a lot of those same contexts as well with local nonprofits and housing and such. To one simple thing could just be to inform them that this is coming and to just express an interest in partnership. I think that can go a long way. But to really even consider how we have some pretty good like resources here in our community that are really relevant and really well, what's the word, like appreciated and like it's meaningful to a lot of our community members. So if there are ways that can be leveraged to make the course really relevant to the community here, and kind of, because sometimes I feel like, and I say this about San Mateo County in general, that, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, sometimes we have so much, and sometimes we don't see how the dots connect, but if we could connect those dots between what you're doing and what others are doing, especially around cultural and arts education in the community, that could be really cool. So Leticia, I think, has a lot of the same context, but I'm also happy to help if you think that would be useful.
There it goes. I think what would be helpful, and one thing we discussed in some of these workshops I've been to, is also the history of, you know, people of color in your area. So what I'd like to do is find someone. My grandfather was Chippewa, and I can tell lots of stories about his childhood, you know, when he grew up. But I'd like to learn, and you know, my family's from North Dakota, the Turtle Mountain Band up in North Dakota. But what I'd like to have, and I have great knowledge about that because that's my family, I can tell you all about Chippewa and what my grandfather went through, but I'd like to find someone that's kind of a local expert on Native American culture here, because that's what was here first, right? And the Native American culture is pretty much disappeared from this area, at least our local immediate area. But I'd like to find out, you know, I don't even know, and shame on me, you know, what tribes lived here, you know, and how they lived, you know, what kind of hunter-gatherer societies were in this particular region. So I think we'd like to, you know, obviously it's not going to take up the whole semester, but we'd like to put in some element of what's the background in Half Moon Bay, what's the Native American culture in Half Moon Bay.
I would be happy to introduce you to Jonathan Cordero, who's the executive director of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who were the people whose lands we are on their unceded ancestral homeland. And these were the folks, Jonathan Cordero in particular, that we can make you that connection. And I would also say, you know, other community members, we can make those connections because, of course, we've partnered with many different community members for our own banners and for co-sponsoring with the City of Half Moon Bay for our different appreciation months, Hispanic Heritage Month, LGBTQ Heritage Month, because I know that we're not just talking about race and ethnicity, we're also talking about different experiences. So I will also say, too, just to this point, Sophia, this also does dovetail in my mind to our ideas of recruitment of teachers that will approximate and look like and have the same experience and the same background as our students, and that is a push and one of our things since the grand jury called that out last year. We presented on that, and it is one of our HR functions about diversifying our workforce. But I thank you, Mr. Olson, too, for wanting to do that, and I will certainly introduce you to Jonathan Cordero from the Ramaytush Ohlone, who were the original peoples here 10,000 years ago.
I also wanted to mention that, yes, as Sophia was mentioning, I have many contacts in our community because I think another important historical perspective is to look at the immigration patterns of Cabrillo Unified School District. Yes, starting with the Ramaytush Ohlone, but there are 2 to 3 generation Mexicans that have lived in our community, so I hear. There aren't that many newcomers, so we can definitely connect afterwards.
Yeah, I'll loop in with you guys so we don't like overwhelm you, but for sure, like the Half Moon Bay Historical Association, I think if you're not in touch with them, will be a great resource. A couple other community members that I know are just really
passionate about history, that could be kind of good perspectives that I learned a lot from, even to your point, Leticia, about just taking for granted the multiple generations and the long history of various cultures and waves of immigration that have taken place. So I think it's really exciting, and because I think this can be a really great opportunity as a school district to pull together our community in a very meaningful way. And I think I'm really thrilled that we have you in this position, Mr. Olson, because you are such a collaborative person by nature and a planner, which is also awesome, and can work with our community to figure out what is the best way to use these different pieces to create really a wonderful experience for our students and achieving our objectives for them with this course. So I'm super excited. This is really awesome. Jesus is going to bring us down later, but for now, I'm pretty happy. I'm sorry, Jesus. We will be very happy with the presentation, because the hard truth sometimes is important. Well, it's always important, but I just can't thank you enough. This is wonderful. I'm glad that we're bringing it to our community early and with such a quality way. So thank you very much. Any other further questions, comments? All right. Thank you. Thank you to you and your colleagues as well. And Ms. Schwan.
Thank you for your leadership in this very much. I mean, I just want to point out for the public, in my last district, there was only a 3-year social studies requirement. You guys already had a 4-year social studies requirement, so you were kind of primed for this. Oh, you're looking at James Barnes saying he helped with that. So I do want to thank you, Ms. Schwen, Mr. Olson, Mr. Barnes, for the work that you did also in that department in the past. So thank you.
All right, very good. So moving on to item 7B, approval of the Measure M, Facility Bond and Parcel Tax Citizens Oversight Committee 2021-22 Annual Report.
And welcome, Mr. Alifano. And Brianna, thank you.
Well, Mr. Alifano leads and chairs the committee, the board-appointed committee for the Facilities Bond and Parcel Tax Citizens Oversight Committee. There's work that gets done, and one of their jobs, one of their main thing is to see that all of the expenditures of the bond are within the purpose that they need to be. So Mr. Alfano has led this committee and is here to present the report for the 21-22 Measure M Oversight Committee.
Good evening, everyone. President Lane and the rest of the board, Superintendent Fettridge and staff. I don't know how we couldn't do this without staff, so thank you so much, staff, for all you do for us, getting us all the documentation and all the requests for information so we can do our job as residents on this oversight committee. So first I wanted to point out Kendra Holland is in there. She's she's actually my co-chair, which is a first. So I'm very happy about that. And then Brianna LaFontaine is here, and she's an awesome community member. And the rest of our committee is as follows. It's Zachary Bennington, Lenny Lekokos, Carl Rupelis, Lisa Zanetti, and then Gary Malio. And so we have a solid group, but we're always looking for more people. So if you find anybody that is interested, we can always have more, which I think would be better than sometimes not having quorum to have a meeting. So we hold our meetings with the Brown Act, in accordance with the Brown Act. So we follow the same meeting rules as you do for your meetings. And we meet minimum 4 times a year. This time we met 6 times. One time we didn't have quorum. But other than that, typically it's 4 to 5 times a year. And you all know this. This is really information for the public. This oversight committee has been combined to oversee not just the parcel tax, which is a voluntary oversight. A lot of people don't understand that. When we passed the parcel tax the first time many years ago, it was originally Measure E. There wasn't a requirement from the state of California, the California Constitution, or any act that required oversight. But in the ballot language, promising, if we get it passed, we would have an oversight committee similar to how we have a bond. And it falls perfectly in line with the oversight duties we have for the bond. So this is, a simple one. So we really oversee not just the parcel tax, but the two, Measure M and Measure S, all combined for our school district. So we just had an audit for the 2021-22 year last month on the 10th. And it was presented to us. And typically, we'll have the audit presented to us, any questions that we have, and then if there's any changes that need to happen, Holly is awesome and helps us tremendously with this, but helps prepare the report for presentation, and everything looked in line. The audit was, as I've seen, in previous years, everything was thorough. We had some questions, but they're typical questions. But it follows the ballot language, and everything was really promised to the voters of our school district, of our district, I should say, but obviously for our school district. Nothing really stuck out that I really need to bring to your attention. It looked pretty straightforward. Really, the biggest question the committee had and we grappled with, which wasn't really our oversight, but it was a concern from the community, which was how much money do we have left, and is it enough to finish Farallon View and El Granada, and some work obviously at Cunha in the high school. And everybody sees the great work that's been done at Hatch, and they're waiting to see that happen in their part of the community. So again, it's not under our purview. We're not part of the planning process. We're part of the oversight process, right? But it is important to us to answer to the community when they have questions about where the school district's at. And obviously, I try to direct them to go to a school board meeting and get involved and listen, and they'll get very acquainted very quick where we are with this process and what you guys are doing to make those necessary steps to get those other two schools going. So happy to hear that things are moving, and we get great answers and information from Jesus and staff. We actually got a great PowerPoint presentation at the last meeting about how much do we have left, and is it Measure M? Is it Measure S? Are the bonds sold? Where's the money sitting? And how are we planning to use this money? And I thought it was very informative. I feel like sometimes I have a pretty good idea of what's going on, being in the position I'm in, but there was a lot of new information in there that I really like to see. So that was a great document. So I thank you again for that document and that presentation. Last meeting, I think it answered a lot of questions for the committee members. Other than that, I think that was about it. Anything else that you'd like to add?
Is the only other question, comment we had on what is being presented is the labeling of items and how much they're spending. So like, for instance, there was I think it was high school roof, and then there was a line item that said roofing, and with different amounts. And there are several of those instances where we just want to know exactly what project that line item was tied to, instead of it being so generalized. So I know Jennifer, Marsh, and Jesus, we're going to go back on that one. None of that is illegal. It was just for transparency and for us to better understand the projects that were being paid against.
As we all know, the devil's in the details. We want to be able to answer this. Honestly, when people come to me and they have questions and they're new to this, the first thing I try to do is direct them to the CUSD website and actually have them read this exact report going back several years. Majority of the time they come back, they have very few questions. Everything's in this document, and it gets updated every year. So it's the perfect answer to getting somebody up to speed as to where the school district's at with parcel tax dollars and bond dollars. And then from there, if they have some questions, I can usually fill it in, and if I don't have the answers, I get the answers pretty quick from staff. That's why, again, I can't do this. We can't do this without them. So we feel very, very fortunate to have them at our disposal for our work. But other than that, I think that's all I need to present. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
And it is an action item, Rosie?
Mm-hmm. All right, do we have a motion to approve? And then we'll open for questions and comments.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you, Lisette, and thank you, Sophia.
Oh, I guess I'll second. Questions and comments? No, it's fine. It's totally fine. Questions and comments from anybody?
Thank you for being thorough and keeping an eye on all this. So thank you for what you do.
I will second that. Thanks again. I think it's one of those roles that people don't know that many of you do, in addition to many of the other things that you do for our community. So just really grateful. It's not always the most, I won't say sexy, but exciting, exciting work to be done. But it is super important, and I'm grateful that we have you folks here in the room and not in the room who are participating in this and collaborating so well with our district staff, and thanks to Jesus and Holly and your team, likewise, because this is important, and I'm glad that you're doing it. So,
I'd also like to thank you guys for just even being here and doing all this work and just helping with the whole transparency, just so that we could support each other and just listen to each other and work together. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you.
okay, if there are no further questions or comments, I'll defer to you, Rosie, to lead us to a vote.
Thank you, Sophia. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Thank you. Passes 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alifano. Thank you, committee members.
We see you.
Well, moreover, I want to thank you also for the questions you're asking. And Mike, I will say that I've heard you say this in previous presentations on this. We all have our eyes on El Granada and Farallon View at this point. I can hear Lenny's voice in my ear, and she's not wrong. This is the time. And I was at, Kendra, I'll say, I was at the Hatch PTO meeting, and I said there is a far cry difference between how Hatch appears and how El Granada and Farallon View appear. And so I've said this to the board previously in the last few months. Those are my priorities going forward on getting that job done. And I want to say, because of Doug and Brianna and our work to work with you on identifying what Phase 2 is going to look like and itemizing and estimating what that modernization looks like, I think then we will be able to make recommendation on that, and then we will have a clear idea of what money remains. So thank you very much. And then speaking of which money remains, now we've got the conversation that is going to be bright and uplifting and light and lively.
Before we start, do a quick temperature check to make sure, do folks need a break? Are we okay pushing on to finish up with this item? So this is our last real item. It's in our hearts. In our hearts. In our hearts. Yes. Yeah.
And it would probably take a while to fire up that heat.
Yeah, it's the balance of heat and
Can we
ventilation
take a break for that?
we're battling with this time of
Should
year.
we-
I was thinking
should we take
I think that was a good idea to bring a lap blanket next time. I think I'm going to bring a lap blanket. I might a little bit. Actually, we're close, so. Okay, so without further ado, oh, she's going to find some. Okay, without further ado, and I also want to point out that it's finals week, so our student board member has taken our encouragement to take care of herself and go home and study, sleep, whatever she needs to do to be ready for this week. So otherwise, without further ado, let's proceed to item 7D, approval of the first interim financial report fiscal year 2022 to 23. Jesus.
Good evening, President Lane and members of the board. Before I get started, I would like for us to take the idea of assumptions. Our budgets are built on assumptions, and those assumptions change. So very clearly, as we go through this presentation, I would like to call to your attention the notion that this that you have in front of you, this that you had the opportunity to review, is how we went from budget adoption in June to where we ended on October 31st of this year. So the budget assumptions got you to have a budget that you approved, and now this is another point in time. It's a report to you as to how we are based on the assumptions and now the current assumptions as they have changed, and our expenditures up until October 31st. One of the first two things that I would like to call to you is that when you approved the budget in June, there was this notion of the LCFF increase settled yet. So now it is a reality. We have I'll cover it later, 13.6 increase in the LCFF. But Jesus, didn't you tell us that we're basic aid? What does LCFF has to do with us or anything? I will go in some detail as to why it's important for us to always get the LCFF story. And the second thing is that because of some of those fiscal issues, the state put out two one-time grants. One of them that you had heard earlier about the continuing to support the COVID pandemic, and the other one which is for the VAPA activities. So I will cover those two also. But we also will be bringing to you what is it that where is the state of our finances worldwide, statewide, and local. Well, we know that we are facing high inflation. We know that the interest rates are shooting up, and that lot of volatility on the supply chain. So now we know, as we talked about bond, that affects our cost of doing business. And last November, we had a report from saying, wait, the revenues into California are not coming in as we expected. So now we're looking at the state saying, well, we might have $24 billion that might not come in. So all the people who are doing business are saying, let's recalculate ourselves, let's change our assumptions, let's see to face the best that we possibly can what is it that our reality is going to be. So where are we in this moment of our year in our budget and reports? Every year you have three different cycles, 3 different years in those cycles. So we are in June. I have them in colors in there just to clarify for you what are we talking about right now. You adopted the 22-23 budget in June. We are bringing to you a first interim and the status of our finances as of October 31st. We will bring another report to you, a second interim that will have the activities, the expenditures from October 31st to January 31st, next month. We'll bring that to you in March. Well, you have a lot of things going on in March. We have March 15. We have many things that we have to report in March. And then at the end of the year, we're saying we're wrapping this up and estimated actuals to you in green in June. But at the same time, you will be adopting the budget for the following year. What did I say about assumptions? It is based on the best information that we have at each and every one of these moments. So, but what happened? You're not through yet with last year. You received estimated actuals in June. You received in September the unaudited actuals. What really happened? You received that in September. And now that in January, we will bring to you the audit report of last year. So just so that we can get clear on what is happening today, we're bringing you a first interim for the budget that we adopted in June. Now, as I always tell you, it's not Jesus's show. It is looking at assumptions from the Department of Finance, from the California Department of Education, and always with the guidance on the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance, the FICMAT. And of course, our fiscal agent is the San Mateo County Office of Education. So they are the ones that ultimately, to whom tomorrow I'm going to be turning in our first interim. Now, let's go into some of those budget adoptions and budget facts. We, for this first interim, took what the County of San Mateo gave us as P1 in October and said that's what we put into this document. It's telling us we're going to be giving you $30-some thousand. We anticipate that that's what's going to be happening, and then we will see those in the spring. We'll see at P2 whether that was realized or not. And for what is required is that we bring to the board current year and 2 years out. I gave you, because these are extrapolations of the same data, we gave you 4 years in there in the report. And so those are what we have gotten to you now. And another thing is, I already said that the LCFL calculator, the base grant, the state of California is helping all the school districts, and it came up to 13.26%. What does that have to do with us? We're basic aid. Well, we have to calculate what revenue we would receive for the students that we serve. And here is where we really need to see whom are we serving and what the revenue would be from the state of California. And this year, our colleagues everywhere received 13.6%. What does that do to our basic aid? Our revenue fell a little below, the estimated revenue, a little below that what we would receive from LCFF. So that puts us back at P1. We got from the county, guess what? You're receiving $0 in December from your taxes. Why? Because you're becoming state funded for this year. Okay, so we take it into our LCFF calculator that it was developed by FICMAT, and then we say we are going to be going back to LCFF, and let's see what happens with our assumptions, with our projections. Oh, it looks like the following 2 years we would go back to basic aid. But what kind of basic aid? Poor basic aid. We will still be in a very, very, very vulnerable position. And vulnerability is that is what I would want to always ask, and I always tell you, the vulnerability of being basic aid. We wish that we could be at deep pockets, basic aid school district, but we are not. We are barely basic aid. So those 13.26 got good news for our colleagues out there. For us, it brings us to the level of our taxes to put us into the LCFF. So 22-23, we flip to LCFF. We anticipate that 23-24 with the assumptions that we have now, we would be going back to basic aid. But we are in declining enrollment. We have less students and they're leaving our area, high cost of living, etc. All the different factors that we have. And this year, we are also providing all of our students universal meals mandate, which is basically the old federal program that we have had supplemented by the state. So it's so sometimes you hear, wait, the state of California now mandated universal meals, and the answer is that we continue with the federal program, and we are, the state of California is providing the rest. How does that affect us? We get the reimbursement from the federal program, and we supplement then for a meal for all of our students. Finally, two things about the grants. The Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, we got $2.7 million. That is what we're accounting for. And then the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Discretionary Grant, we have $1.7 million. These two grants have some requirements. So those are not funds that we can use for everything. We have to use them for those purposes. Now, the state of California said, we're going to get you those recovery grants, and then is legislated in there a few things that you can use it for some operation. You do all these things, and you may use it for some operation, okay? So those are things that right now, every meeting that I am with the state, they're like, wait, what are you saying that we could? Well, that is something that you're going to have to decide. So we will be bringing to you a plan where we think that we can say we can use these dollars in this manner. So it requires a plan that the team, Leticia, and all of us are going to be working on to bring a plan to you. Now you're saying, wait a minute, didn't we just vote on this Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials grant? What we voted was for an ongoing other grant for that purpose. Now, that we voted is something that it's going to get defined yet. We think that it's going to be about 1% of the LCFF entitlement. Now we go back what? It's important that we know exactly what that LCFF calculation is so that we can know what 1% of that grant might be. Now, that is going to be ongoing dollars. This grant is discretionary, and it is a one-time grant. So we have two for similar, one ongoing and this one. A little bit of what happened with, exactly what happened with the ELOP dollars. One of them we received a grant.
That's
and
the
then,
extended learning.
The Extended Learning Opportunity Program. Extended Learning Opportunity Program. We speak educationese, and I apologize for that. So, okay, this is just a graph of what happened. Last year, remember that I came to you and talked about a super cola, 5 point something. Well, this year, because the state of California had the funds, it was 6.57 that then it was added an assembly bill that was in September, just in September, AB 185 that increased it and ended up with 13.6, which is what we have now. That's what we have now. The state of California was saying, okay, so staff shortages and fiscal pressures, that the districts are having, but I took this from our colleagues who are small school districts and are basic aid. What this did is many other districts like us went back to be LCFF funded. What assumptions, what is it? All of these numbers that you see here is what gets into the LCFF calculator so that we can come up with our projections. Assumptions that get in here, and there are projections. So I just want to call in here the fact that we had a statutory COLA of 6.56%, and then the LCFF investment of 6.7%. That's at 13.26%. Now, in there, on all this data that it is also that I want to call attention to is that look at the CalSTRS. Remember that last year we had gotten a respite from the state? Look where it's going to go into 22-23, from 16.92 to 19.10%, and then the CalPERS from 22.91% to 25%. So we knew that we were getting a respite on those numbers. So I just wanted to call those two points, which are in the LCFF calculator, which are in what we have. So where are we or where we have been? In 1920, our units got 3% increased salaries. And then in 2021, our units got another 3% of salary increases. Last year, we were anticipating a higher revenue. We were anticipating that from P1 to P2, things looked good. Things looked like the San Mateo has a tool that they put in there that is the tracker, the tax tracker, and it has us by areas, and that was looking very good. So as it was going up, we even thought like, well, let's not think that we're going to get the full 6%. Let's do 4%. Well, let us then go and get our units. They got a 5.29% increase, and they also got a one-time $2,000 one-time payment. So that puts us, without looking at it in a compound manner, at 11.29% increase over the last 3 years.
I just want to jump in here. Last year we heard a lot about, we had conservative assumptions, conservative projections at 2%. We thought we would have 2% growth. We based all our projections and negotiations with our bargaining units on that 2%. And we kept hearing over time, it's too conservative, it's too conservative. And what Mr. Contreras is speaking about is the assessment tracker from the San Mateo County, the County of San Mateo, not the Office of Education, the County of San Mateo. And those numbers did indeed look over 6%, 6.55%, I think, when we were closing negotiations, when we were taken to impasse and were negotiating. And so we did make the calculation, okay, we'll do 4%. I'm reiterating this point because we overestimated. Had we stuck with our original 2% projection, we would not be in the red in out years because we would have not offered the raise we did. We offered the raise in good faith because we thought, okay, maybe you're right, maybe we're wrong, maybe we are underestimating. We did not underestimate. At 2%, we overestimated. So when you see back on the first page, I'm sorry, page 5, the budget assumption, you have us back at a projected 2% tax revenue increase in the out years. It is important for us to have the fiscal austerity and a focus on sustainability and the discipline to be able to say, we were wrong before. And so I just want to point that out. It is important, I think, that everyone understand that the board, upon my recommendation, and with much consultation and gnashing of teeth with all kinds of fiscal experts, we went with a 4% projection. We were wrong. It was below our original projection of 2%. And that is the story. That is why we are in the place we're in now.
As we look back and see this is our what we have had with our salary increases, I always want to go back to see, so whom are we serving? What is it what are our the students that we are serving? And I really like this 1.17 that gives us in a summary of all the students that we have. I just want you to point that we are now, as of October, this is census data that we're just getting ready to certify. It's October, we are serving 2,750 students. And of those students, it's important to know that 997 of our students qualify for free and reduced meals. And 680 of those students are what is called a direct certification. That means that they are participating in a form of welfare from our county for whatever. So we get those from the, so it's important to see whom we are serving and what we want to do as we look into, as you direct us and guide our policy to serve our clients.
Another big picture here, I just got to interject here, Jesus, is remember that you were over 3,000 3 years ago. You are now at 2,750. So you are going back into local control funding formula. Ms. Hines mentioned earlier that if you looked at Palo Alto, students are getting funded, or the district is getting funded about $25,000 per student. If you look at the U.S. News and World Report and look up Cabrillo Unified School District, you'll see our budget is about $13,000 per pupil. La Honda Pescadero is about $25,000. Palo Alto is about $25,000. As we slip back into local control funding formula, when you have a declining enrollment, that's less money on the table.
So as we move to our next slide. Okay, so this is how our LCFF calculator looks like. It's year to year, and what we expect, and then the LCFF entitlement to be. You see there that 22-23, the entitlement is $32,124,212. So this is the year that we are not basic aid, that we are not that we are LCFF. But we go back up in there next 23, 24, and then you see our projections. Our projections are estimates that we do with a 2% of tax and anticipating how many students we're going to be serving. So it's important, so those very important things. Whom are we serving, and how they will be generating then the data that is going to be populating our LCFF calculator. The LCFF calculator will in turn then say, okay, how many taxes are you collecting locally, are going to be having, and what would you be getting from the state? So that puts us into our multi-year projections. And in our multi-year projections, the reason why I put the little arrow in there, because that is the unrestricted funds. Oh. Okay, so that arrow on unrestricted funds, it means that is the reality of LCFF. Now, the restricted funds are those funds that we receive, federal or state. You see in there as revenue in the restricted area a $9.423 million. There is where the two grants are. They are accounted for in the restricted area. They are there for are the specific purposes that are called for, but they're restricted dollars. So, but what I point to you here is the ending balance and the bottom line of the projections as we have them right now with the information that we have is that we would be meeting in blue our 3%, which is what is required of us. We would be meeting that. And that at the end, the unassigned reserve is the green, the bottom one, with 107K in this year, and next year, 98K. Why 98K in there? Because that is the year that we anticipate to receive back or to keep the two, approximately right now I'm thinking the $2 million that we could keep going back to basic aid. You see those 2 million showing up the next year after. You see that, oh, okay, they're not there. You had seen on that line in the past, last year, $5 or $6 million or $7 million. That's where you had seen them. So when I say in my next slide, we have depleted, that is what I mean. That green is what we have depleted. So that's where you would be looking at.
I'm just going to jump in here. You know, earlier in the evening we heard bargaining unit representatives say that the word depleted was potentially not good word choice. I think it is completely neutral and completely objective and completely factual. The truth of the matter is, in districts, 90% of the money really goes to the people who provide services. That includes custodians, food service workers, teachers, administrators, et cetera, et cetera. It is true, it is a fact, that the reason why we are in this place in the third out year and the fourth out year is because, as I said before, we did the right thing by employees, but it provides us a place now where we have to do other right things for the fiscal health of the organization. I will say, too, that today I signed up for a February 1st Capital Advisors budget analysis. Mr. Contreras will probably go with me, Ms. Marsh may go with me, maybe Dr. Bhatia will go with me. We will find out more from the state going forward. There will be new assumptions. But at this point in time, and I think, Jesus, you've taught me now, or other CBOs have, but you certainly have in this organization. These are point-in-time assumptions. That's what he's providing you. And at this point in time, looking down the road a piece, we have to do some fancy footwork to get back in the good books for the third and fourth out year.
So what would have happened if that reserve were in the 4 million, 5 million, as per our aspirational board policy, the board policy that you have, to keep in there at 13%? Well, then we can weather all of these ups and downs in an easier manner. We would know that we still have that, but without that in there, then we need to do that. When you adopted in 2020 the board policy that would say, okay, let's keep 13% above the 3%, what you were adopting was exactly to do that, to keep a reserve that would not get us into situations like this. You are going to also be hearing about, but that is in 24, 25. If we do nothing, it would be that. So that's why we reassess ourselves, we look into how we do business, we are going to have to implement some measures of austerity, and so that we can do what we need to do to change that, then that's what we would want to do. So, Rosie, can you help me? Okay. So with this information and knowing that our 4% last year did not materialize, and that we are now building this point in time with our current P1 assumptions and 2% on the out years, with that picture, would render that picture that you looked at, then the responsible thing for me is to bring it to you and ask to approve it in a qualified manner, that we embrace our reality, and then we will continue to look at what those austerity measures might be, and how we can align ourselves to make sure that we bring ourselves.
Jesus, I want to just jump in again, too. I think you say it's your responsibility. It is your responsibility. You're a very responsible chief business officer, and have advised us correctly all the way, and I take responsibility as part of negotiations last year for appraising us at a higher amount. But I will also say that it's not just your responsibility, it's what we're required to do. If the county sees this, and they will, and our report, they would not accept a positive certification.
No.
They would only accept a qualified certification. So it's not Mr. Contreras is the bad guy. It's not the county office that's the bad guy. It's not the state of California that's the bad guy. It's that our assumptions in time last year when we were concluding negotiations after a difficult time in negotiations were incorrect, and now we have a better reality, and we'll have some steps ahead. I do think you have said in here in your conclusion, Jesus, that CUSD anticipates being able to weather the upcoming fiscal uncertainties. It certainly would have been the case that it would have been easier to do so with a larger reserve. When I heard today that we have a plenty of reserve, we should spend it, that's not looking in the third or fourth out year. So I just want to say that there are many truths in the world. And for some people, they think we have millions of dollars to spend. And for me, I'm thinking, okay, we're back where we were 3 years ago, and we have some things we'll have to do to get back in the good books.
In your packet, you received all of our different funds. So the Fund 21, that's where we have the bond dollars. So you would have gone in there and seen in detail the Fund 21, the bond dollars. They are not anywhere in here. This is exclusively Fund 1, which is our LCFF generated ADA. That's our main purpose, Fund 1. You do have the accounting of the bond also here in the Fund 21. And you also got Fund 25, which it reads reserve, but it is part of the construction dollars as well. So, okay. With that, I ask the board to consider approving the first interim as a qualified.
Thank you very much, Jesus. So do we have a motion to approve? Second? All right.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Oh, it's Kim? Kim.
Kim. Thank you, Kim, for second.
All right, with that, open to questions and comments for Jesus and or Sean.
Oh, I got questions. Okay, can we go to the slide, Rosie, that we all love to look at? So the $2 million. The one we based the money slide.
MYP, the multi-year.
The color one.
That one.
Some of us do not love to look at the slide.
Well, Someday we will love to look at that side. So how sure are you about us? So the 2 million, the assumed 2 million that we flip back into basic aid is in there. You said that.
Correct.
How confident do you feel about us flipping back into basic aid?
So
Because if we don't, then that 2 million is gone, right?
let's go back. It's an assumption. It's an assumption that we are going to be going back. What is that assumption? On the increased 2%, if our 2% materializes in the spring, then we build from there the next 2% of tax increase. So that is where we're basing it. And because we would be going back to basic aid based on that assumption that we are going to be above that the LCFF. Because why the LCFF? My assumption is that it's going to stay the same, because I don't think the state is going to be giving another increase to the LCFF base, because they just did 13.26%.
Because the outlook looks so bad for the state. Part of why.
They don't have it. If they're facing a 24 billion shortage, I don't see where the state is going to be saying, let's increase the LCFF.
Well, but I'm gonna add something here, and I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna, but I'm gonna talk about this too. There is talk about the Prop 98 guarantee, and that this recession and downturn that the state is anticipated to see, which everybody's talking about, it is entirely possible that we will see an increase in funding, but again, assumption, real in time, we don't know that. We don't know what Governor Newsom's going to lead to in his budget in January, and that's why we don't go till February 1st to figure that out. And then remember, we count on that money, and then what happens to it? You don't know, you don't realize it till months in time later. So Mary Beth, I'd hate to answer like a lawyer, and I hate to disparage lawyers. I think it's a fine answer. It depends.
Well, I mean, if that didn't come through, that will kill us. I mean, that's another $2 million. The other thing is, how sure of you are about that number for $2 million? I know when we came back in before, it was $2 million, and that saved us.
It was 2.5.
Okay. I mean, could it be 500,000? Could it be 4 million, or is it pretty consistent at
It
around
is
that
not.
number?
It is not. So what we did is take a 5-year and get an average.
And what would a high and a low of that be? I mean, was
it
500,000 1 year? Because that's going to kill us too.
Well, when we flipped back in 2020, it was 2.5 million that gave us the jump. Now, the average, it's close to 2%. So because we got 2.5, okay, let's say 2%.
So I'm hearing there's a wide confidence interval around that 2 million number. Could be 500 or 4 million, who knows? That's a good point, Mary Beth.
And there should be a wide confidence interval about what the state is going to be able to do, what the Prop 98 guarantee will be like, what the new budget will look like. It's not a roller coaster just here, it's a roller coaster at the state.
As well as that newly approved proposition in November actually decreased our chances of raising the base and getting more Prop 98 funding, because that came from the same money in their general fund too. So that was a lot of the tempered enthusiasm around that measure, is that it's basically taking that money out of the legislator's control, and it basically saying, thou shalt spend it on this, without giving the flexibility to districts to spend it on whatever they need.
Well, that's the other thing too, is if the voters pay for it and you get it, then yes, they don't have control of it, we don't have control of it, it becomes a categorical fund. But I would tell you at that point, then we're looking at that and saying, okay, we're going to get that money, you're saying it's 1%, let's say that's 300,000 of our budget, for giggles. And so then you say, okay, we're going to back out and use the money that we've been spending on the Visual and Performing Arts Master Plan and the Arts in Action, music for minors, the staffing of music here, the staffing of music at the high school, and we'll back that into that funding, and that would bring other funding for the general fund. So remember, this is point in time. We will figure out what that actual percentage is, who knows what it's going to be, and then we will start moving the money around and freeing it up. But at the end of the day, Mr. Contreras has calculated these dollars for the other pieces, and you're still in the hole in the third and fourth out year.
Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick snippet to introduce into the space, and I know Carmen is new to the budget process here. The reason we keep working with Senator Becker's office and talking about cost of living is that there are states that have a locality index. I'll use Virginia as an example. If you are in the Washington, D.C. area where it's a higher cost of living, those school districts get a higher base funding than rural Virginia. And I say that because for the state, it doesn't cost the state anymore to allocate a locality index because the taxes are already collected and in the Bay Area. They turn into what's called the education revenue account and then get termed excess ERAF and get used to pay for things at the county and municipality. So it gets skimmed off because it's not directed to the schools that it was originally taxed for. So that's why I keep on that conversation, and it's taken me 6 years to get to this level of understanding, but why we keep working for it. So my ask of you, Jesus, is that in the course of running our budgets and doing everything you do, if there is a way to communicate with other similar school districts and to help with that collective communication, it may be that we need to figure out how to collaborate with some of those other districts and have a more unified message there. So if there's anything that you think that we can do as a board, please ask.
We'll do as soon as because that's a good example. Get the ERAF. It's legislated a long time ago, and then it has had so many iterations of doing ERAF. And it is local boards at the end of the day that are going to be having the voice.
I wanted to comment on something you said, Dr. McFetridge, about the declining enrollment and how that hurts us. Of course, I don't want kids leaving our district, and I want kids here, but I want to push back on that a little bit, because if we have declining enrollment to a point, we become basic aid, and that's why a lot of these districts around us are doing so well financially, because they're tax money and they don't have very many kids. So at some point, I think that declining enrollment isn't always horrible. Like, it can actually help us once we get out of this flipper place.
No, you're exactly right. And I think probably the harbinger for going back into basic aid is the declining enrollment. Because at some point when your numbers come down, okay, now your taxes are higher than your local control funding formula. And that's probably what flipped us before, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
20.
Yeah, 20, so 2 years ago. And, you know, what a beautiful day that was, because all of a sudden it was like, who knew? Now we can give the 3% retroactive and the 3%. So yes, in the short term though, that declining enrollment with LCFF funding would be, you know, most school districts, if they're going to stay in LCFF funding or they are LCFF funded, declining enrollment feels bad. If you go back into basic aid, of course, then you're like, okay, now we're getting more money, but remember, we're poor basic aid. But in my last district, of course, when we started getting declining enrollment, what you talk about is school closures, because you have to run efficiently. So I don't want, I'm sorry I brought that into the space.
Let's not go there today.
Yeah, and we're not. But yeah, I mean, look, we've been making efforts to right-size our schools. We will continue to make efforts with position and control and the work that Mr. Contreras has been doing with Ms. Forrester to look at our staffing. And we are staffed pretty tightly at the elementary schools, but we know there's work to do to make sure we're efficiently staffed, because that's where the savings will come. When you have fewer students, you need fewer staff. And so we'll look at attrition, we'll look at austerity. We won't staff where we don't need to staff.
And just to go there, basic aid district and the low number of students, good news. LCFF district and low number of students, bad news.
Right, that simplifies it. Hey, Rosie, could I ask you to go to slide number 8? I got a little bone to pick with this one too. I just want to confirm first, in that slide we were just looking at, Jesus, that I assume that includes our salary schedule increase for all of our employees, which is not this, the one we were just on.
Yes, it includes a 2%.
On average, 2% for all of our employees.
We assume a 2% across the board for salaries increases for step and column.
Right, okay.
But not on this slide.
No.
No.
So now, I'm just clarifying that. So now, on this slide, I just want to make sure, because this is a little bit confusing to me, I just want to make sure that this is clarified for the public, and correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. But so, the salary schedule increases are on average 2%, and then this is on top of those.
Correct.
Right? So I just have a bone to pick with the title. That the title shouldn't be salary increases, because the salary increases when you look at what you made one year and you look what you made the next. I think it should be called raises to the salary schedule or something like that. And it seems like a minor detail, but it actually is a lot of money and a lot of percentages that are not included in there when you take into account that on average 2%.
Can I try to explain this? This would slide, and look, I'm to fault for this because I check every slide, I think, almost that goes to the board. This should have said negotiated CUSD salary increases. What Member Alexander
But
is...
the public doesn't know that. You
Yes.
need to say something about salary schedule, or they don't understand stepping stones.
And your point is well taken. And so our slide should say negotiated CUSD salary increases. That's what we negotiated as raises. What Ms. Alexander is suggesting, and not suggesting, is pointing out for us, which I think is an important point, is that every year we add another 2% to the step and column, because people, as they increase in their seniority, are getting more money as they advance in the salary schedule. And that's not figured in this slide.
Well,
you are correct.
And the compounding, which I know you said, it doesn't include the compounding, but that actually ends up being significant when you're getting 2% and then 3% and then 2% and then 3% and then 2% and then 5.2% to 9%, just
Okay,
FYI.
I'll figure out a way to depict it.
I just want to bring it up for clarity.
It's a hidden cost. It's not expressed in that slide.
And can I add to that? Because I think the way that it's been presented in the past, I think, was very clear and helpful, where rather than negotiated salary increases, I think we refer to the salary schedule itself. That's clear, because that's what increases through negotiations. It's not the salaries in total. Salary is bigger than salary schedule, right? If you had a Venn diagram. So this, to me, is the CUSD salary schedule increases in recent years. And to Mary Beth's point, perhaps consider putting a footnote that includes the estimated additional 2% per year in step and column increases, which covers not only the seniority, but covers the educational attainment.
That's right.
We'll do that.
So as a scientist who has presented at probably 2,000 abstracts to congresses, to colleagues, and over the years, I think where we could use footnotes that can cover those important but not headlining points.
Right, it's not a huge deal, but
it's
I do
important
think
for completeness, because it is misleading. That's almost double in some of the lower years.
Yeah,
and the compounding too, I agree.
I will do that.
Yeah, thank you, Jesus.
I take responsibility for that. We're often in debate about this, and I think, well, that's the cost of doing business in a public school district. There's always step and column increases, but for the public and for the board, I think it is an important point that you are raising, and so in the future we can add the fact that there's another 2% that we figure every year as people are moving up the steps and columns, or getting their master's attainment, or their PhD attainment, or their continuing education unit.
The same can be said about our CalSTRS and CalPERS contributions. Those are actual costs that are going towards our
Not to mention health benefit increases, too. I mean, if you were to look at all the ways that the cost of doing business is getting more, that's just one piece. The negotiated salary increase is just one piece of how the costs are going up. Another piece is the cost of utilities, which is why we want solar on every campus, right? The cost of heating, PG&E, the cost of water. I mean, there's all kinds of increases if you wanted to talk about the cost of doing business is increasing for us, health benefits included.
That's a really good point, and that might be good information to have in a future presentation. Even your point, Jesus, earlier about the universal meals requirement now, too, the federal and the state governments will reimburse us to a certain point, which correct me if I'm wrong, but is about $4.10 per meal, which if you've ever bought a sandwich in Half Moon Bay is like not even near what it costs to have a decent meal.
Exactly.
So our kids end up eating substandard meals because you have to kind of get that balance of not anything more that we spend is coming out of our general fund. And when it's a universal meal, that's more kids, presumably, unless the food is so bad that no one wants it. But you don't want it to be that situation. The whole point is that they eat good food so they can learn. So that's a good point, then maybe we can have that in a future presentation.
Going back to Kim's point, the reimbursement is the same across California. Does not have any differential.
Thank you. And my only other comment, again, I want to just start with this. Thank you, Jesus, because you always bring us sometimes not terrible news, sometimes really hard news, not perhaps surprising because we have been deficit spending for a long time, and at some point your reserves run out. And to me, again, to the planning discussion we had with Mr. Olson, that's part of our job, is to plan ahead and not be in a situation like we were in 2019 when you guys all came on board and be like, oh, tomorrow we have to make cuts. That's terrible. We have a little bit of time now, so it's doable with less pain, but still not a situation we want to be in. And we just always need to remember, no matter what, when you're spending more than you're bringing in, you will use up your savings account and you will run out of rent. And we're kind of looking at year after next, we've run out of rent, $2 million. So I really do hope that $2 million bump with flipping back next year is close to what it is. If it's more, great, because it kind of starts to eat away at the future deficits. But I think it's just something we always need to keep in mind. When you spend more than you bring in, you're going to use up your bank account. And if you only look 1 or 2 years out, it looks fine. Or like this year, okay, great. What's black this year by $100,000, which is basically budget dust on a $35 million budget.
That's basically zero.
It's basically zero because this margin of error, right? Like you make a mistake and whatever. So I appreciate that I wish the state required us to look farther ahead, because then we can see how much more this, escalates. But thank you for bringing us the information.
And I know it's hard to look ahead because it's all assumptions, It's so hard.
Yeah.
But
that's all you have, and you have to work with assumptions and continuously refine them as you are, right? And you're always getting new information. This changes up, this changes down, but we have to be prepared for the ups and the downs.
Just with the note of looking ahead, if we look at slide 3, the next slide. If you look at slide 3, I just want to point this out. Mr. Contreras will be back and will provide information on that second interim budget, and that says October 31 to January 31, but that's really not going to be until March. You can see the black and white band of the calendar band. In March, we will have new information. He will be able to true up new information from expenditures and inputs. And we will also have been to the capital advisors and we'll know what the governor's budget is. So we'll have new projections in March again. So I just want to lay that out. I think it was Harvey Milk said you got to give them hope. So I want to be hopeful here. I don't want to be, too doom and gloom like some of my colleagues say that I can be. We'll be back.
Yeah, well, we are putting in a qualified report right now.
We are putting a Mr. Contreras is recommending, as he must,
Right.
per his superintendent and the county office, to put in a qualified report because that third out year shows a big red number.
I just have a couple more comments, then I'm done. We talked about our reserve is basically zero right now. We've already talked about that. But because of that, we are going to, I assume, end up taking out another loan next. Well, no, we're LCSFF now, so we won't need to do that loan, right?
But you did authorize us to have a loan, and that is
Right,
what-
I'm thinking the next.
Oh,
But,
the following year.
we won't have to do that, though, because we're LCFF.
Yes, LCFF would keep us on that schedule.
Oh, okay.
But currently, because we would have received taxes in December that we won't until February, now we are going to be riding on the borrowed dollars
Right now.
right now.
Okay, okay, but we're talking about. Okay, and then my last comment was, on that slide, if you look at our budget, our amount of money we have, it's getting less every year. I mean, that's part of the problem, right? And I assume because we got extra money during COVID. But, I mean, if our budget numbers coming in, we were getting the same or a little bit more every year, I think we would be okay. The problem is that our budget is getting less every year.
By budget, you mean revenues?
Our revenues.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not saying the right word. We're revenues. Thank you. I mean, 49, 45, 43.
Which line are you looking at?
Total revenues on the combined column, 49, 45.
And
43.
combined
I mean, we're
is,
getting less.
Combined is the unrestricted and restricted. There was a moment where we got a lot of COVID dollars, a lot of money that came our way, and then the combined, they are accounted for in there.
Right, so that makes me kind of not feel so bad. Like, if your dollars coming in are going down every year, you have to make cuts, and that's no one's fault, right?
Our life, our everyday existence is around the unrestricted, the first column. This accounts for everything, but the unrestricted is what we look at when we look at the reality of our.
But I think what Mary Beth is saying too is that, and what you've just said, is that we did get monies for COVID reality. As we come out of COVID reality and we don't have this COVID funding that's dedicated for COVID funding, some of the things that we've spent that funding on, we must recommend to you that we no longer spend. So for example, when Dr. Batia, when Leticia brings that picture of the closet, the cute pantry, and the many levels of peanut butter, in the past, we may have thought we needed certain things because of COVID realities. We may say, hey, guess what? That's a nice to have, not a need to have. And so we will be making recommendations. I think I've spoken to a couple of you about some already that are based on health issues. We've staffed up for health issues because of COVID. You may see some tweaks in that because that funding, that restricted funding, no longer exists. So sorry, we can't have that service anymore. So Mary Beth, you are exactly correct. You are seeing a revenue dip because of us going from a high time in the budget, weirdly enough, during the COVID era where they said, we're going to spend money on this. They could infuse us money. And now you see, and I think you're exactly right, that total revenues line going from 49 million to 45 million to 43 million to 44 million, you see a dip in our revenues on the combined side. But as Mr. Contreras has said, it's really the unrestricted side where you see it.
But it's an excellent point.
Yeah.
There are so many things that we have operated during the, we must really understand what needs to go because it's no longer needed. It's a nice thing to have, but when we don't let it go, then you are bringing it to the unrestricted side. You would be bringing those expenditures to something that would affect the general fund, and that's where we would be.
So just anticipate that we will be bringing you recommendations for it's time to clean the pantry. I've charged Dr. Bhatia with doing that with software. I've charged the technology department with doing that with technology, laptops, et cetera, et cetera. How are we going to save costs? We used to need laptops for every child during remote learning. We used to wind up, when I entered the district, all the high school students left with a laptop. You know what? We could repurpose those laptops and save money. There's a lot of things that we will be bringing to you that we think are nice to haves that we must let go of if we're going to weather the storm.
And my definition that I always bring to everybody is that frugality means having it all, but economically, efficiently, and effectively. So doing everything. We need to have it all, but we need to do the 3 E's. Effectively, efficiently, and economically.
Which is probably why I say no to pickleball courts, Ms. Holland. Much love to you, my sister.
Goes with your coat. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you so much, Jesus. Are there any further questions before we go to vote? And we are going to make our 10 o'clock curfew, so I'm not going to ask for an extension. So without further ado then, Rosie, let's proceed to vote.
All right, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Okay, passes 5-0.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jesus and Sean and everybody. All right, moving on. Item 8, future events. Next week's winter break, December 19th to January 2nd. All sites will be closed. Happy holidays to everyone. And our last man standing, literally, well, sitting, but same idea, in the audience. January 3rd, teachers and staff workday, no school for students. So students are back to school. I guess that makes it January 4th. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Item number 9?
So moved.
All right, second? Second. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Rosie.
Thank you, Mary Beth. I couldn't hear who seconded.
Me. Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Happy holidays.